James Casbolt MI6, Buried Alive. By James Casbolt / Michael Prince. Copyright James Casbolt / Michael Prince. All rights reserved. http://www.jamescasbolt.com/index.html. Chapter 1, Mannequin. My name is James Michael Casbolt. The following is my life and testimony. I was born in London in 1976. I was chosen for an intelligence agency mind control and genetic enhancement program before my birth and was born into the program known as Project Mannequin. This project is one of the most secret and classified projects in this country, and this is the first ever book written about it. I was born into the project because of rare genetic attributes that I possess, which the handlers of the project are looking for also, because of my family's involvement in the intelligence community and the Illuminati. My family descends from the French royal family of the French Revolution on my father's side. My grandfather was involved in naval intelligence in the Second World War. His name was James Casbolt. He was also a high-ranking member of the Sindlesham Grand Masonic Lodge in Berkshire. Berkshire is a major centre of activity in the UK for what has come to be known as the New World Order. He was a Zionist Jew and also heavily involved with Rupert Murdoch and ran his own printing company after the war. My uncle was an MI5 operative in logistics, his name is Brain Casbolt, and my father was a MI6 operative, his name was Peter Casbolt. My father was also known under many different aliases in the intelligence community. My stepfather, Neil Pettit, was a high-level executive of an aluminium metal company called High-Mets, now called Service Metals. This company was based in Newbury, practically right on top of the AL/499 facility. Neil had a military defense contract with the MOD and worked underground at RAF Welford connects underground to the AL/499. He also worked at Harwell Genetics Labs in the area and Boscombe Bay Down Military Unit in Wiltshire. Both these places are heavily connected to Project Mannequin, as we shall see later in this book. I also have a relative called Charles Casbolt. Charles had so many kills during dogfights in the RAF during the time of the Second World War, there is a war hero website dedicated to him on the internet. Google Charles Casbolt to see this. My father was involved in international drug trafficking operations bringing millions of pounds worth of illegal drugs into Britain from the 1960s onward. He worked with associates of MI6 operative Howard Marks and operated in Rome, Spain, the Middle East, and other places. MI6 and the CIA have become infamous for this, and the drug money is known in Secret Service circles as non-appropriated funds. This money funds covered projects that need to be kept off certain official government records. Many of these issues, as well as my involvement in Project Mannequin, will be made public for the first time in this book. I have had constant death threats, and even intelligence people die in very suspicious circumstances hours before arranged meetings with me. However, the mission of getting this highly classified information to the public and exposing the people perpetuating the horrors of this medical project is bigger than me and must be made public. The disregard for human life and suffering compares with the Nazi scientists' genetic and mind control experimentation in World War II. Project Mannequin is a mind control and genetic manipulation program run by the National Security Agency, NSA. Although the NSA is officially the United States government, they run many covert black projects in many countries around the world. The NSA is fast becoming the world's most powerful secret service and is currently taking over much of the global intelligence apparatus. Project Mannequin was started in 1972 and is still being run from a 6-level underground facility beneath the small town of Peasmore in Berkshire, a few miles from where I grew up. This underground base is so secret that the local residents of Peasmore are not even aware it exists. This NSA facility, known in intelligence circles as the AL/499 base, is located 200 feet below the village. There are entrances to the facility at Greenham Common, known as Bravo Entrance, which is now sealed off, Watchfield Military Science College, Delta Entrance, and Harwell Laboratories in Oxfordshire. There are entrances to the base in Lambourne and Welford in Berkshire. The underground base at Lambourne is the Area 51 of the UK, with many exotic, anti-gravity aircraft stored there. The project involves the kidnapping of targeted civilians and also certain intelligence and military people. Some of the intelligence and military personnel have volunteered for the project, but many have not. Almost all of the civilian guinea pigs have not volunteered and have been used against their wills. I was sold into the project. Many of the civilians have also been used in the project from young children. The reason is to create programmed sleeper agents using sophisticated electronic hardware-based hypnosis. These individuals are programmed by the NSA to carry out future tasks, set by the NSA, and become hitmen as adults. Sleepers are people who carry out a huge variety of pre-programmed tasks with sometimes little awareness of the medical procedures in ProjectMannequin because of advanced memory erasure techniques. A large part of the project focuses on creating espionage agents and assassins who have undergone genetic enhancements, which will be discussed in greater detail in this book. ProjectMannequin is actually a type of school I grew up in. I have been trained since the age of 5 at the AL/499 and other military bases around the UK. I carried out my first covert assassination for the intelligence community when I was 16 years old in Brighton. This may sound unbelievable to many people, but a vast amount of evidence will be presented in this book. Most people do not know what the intelligence community actually is. Forget about James Bond movies. Much of the Secret Service apparatus in the UK and US is an occult, pedophile network run by corrupt factions of the illuminated degrees of Freemasonry, 33rd degree and above. Everything in ProjectMannequin is organized by the Jewish Kabbalah occult system, using such esoteric methods as numerology and archaeometry, advanced remote viewing. Even the name James Casbolt means valiant, decorated warrior of death and destruction in Kabbalah numerology. You can check this yourself on the Kabbalah calculator available on the internet. My security number in ProjectMannequin was X4566-2, and I was a commander of a 5-member unit that consisted of 4 males and 1 female. Even this was based around the Kabbalah, as the 5 members each represented one of the 5 elements: air, water, fire, earth, metal/spirit. Our assassination unit was part of a 15-member Delta team, and the team was divided into 3 units. Each unit comprised of 4 males and 1 female. I was known as Commander Michael Prince. During my visits to the AL/499 throughout my life, I was taken through the Greenham Common Bravo entrance most of the time. Sometimes other entrances were used. At the Alpha entrance in Harwell Laboratories, there is a security area in one of the buildings. This security area, A, is guarded by 2 security officers who are both armed. At this area is an elevator that descends 200 feet to security area B. The elevator has 2 sections, one for personnel and guinea pigs and one for vehicles. The second security area is larger and has 4, and sometimes 5, officers that are all fully armed. Area B has 2 highly secure blast doors that will seal off the tunnel to the AL/499 in the event of an emergency. Security Area B has 2 vehicles in operation that travel back and forth from Harwell to Peasmore. The security officers escort all guinea pigs to, from, and around the AL/499. The medical subjects are drugged when they enter the facility. My involvement with the intelligence community goes back years, as it was planned for, as a child in ProjectMannequin, that I would be used as an espionage agent when I grew up. By the time I was 18, I was involved in advanced remote viewing programs at an underground facility in London. By the time I was 19, I was involved in covert MI6 drug trafficking operations working for my father. This was in London between 1995 and 1999. My father, uncle, and grandfather also had mind control issues, and the programming sites in this country where my father was programmed will be discussed in this book. Intelligence-run mind control operations are usually a multi-generational thing, with each generation more easily programmed, as the genetic memory of the horrific medical procedures become more ingrained into the family's genetic makeup. In the 1950s, a genetic bloodline study was started by the NSA based at Harwell Laboratories to find suitable candidates, especially children, to be used in Project Mannequin. From this study, the project was started in 1972, however, my family may have been targeted for mind control before the 1950s. The NSA is very interested in creating genetically enhanced assassins and espionage agents who have certain inborn genetic traits such as psychic ability. These genetic enhancement methods are a continuation of the Nazi geneticists and mind control doctors in the Second World War. As many people know, the Nazis were heavily into the occult, and Hitler was trying to create his Übermann, which is German for Superman. This is a genetically enhanced soldier with heightened senses, intelligence, strength, and paranormal abilities such as telepathy. All of this will be covered in detail in Chapter 2. The NSA is looking for people of certain bloodlines, and these people are mainly of Celtic/blue blood, aristocratic, genetics. Individuals with these genetics have a predisposition to paranormal/psi ability, as these cultures have practiced psychic abilities for generations in ancient rituals that have their modern expression in Freemasonry. Therefore, it is in the genetic memory of people of these bloodlines, even if they have not practiced psychic ability themselves. There are generations of high-level Masonry in my family. Individuals of Celtic blue bloodlines have an Rh-negative blood factor. This is a very rare blood type and makes up about 5% of the population. Rh-negative means oxygen is processed in the blood differently to people with Rh-positive blood. The amount of oxygen processed by the body makes all the difference in unusual abilities. This is evident in arts like Tai Chi and yoga. There are also deeper issues, which connect to the so-called ancient Nephilim of the Bible. My father's mother was a French aristocrat named Vera Tillard. There were generations of high-level Freemasonry in the de Tillard family. The family line then went through Scotland and into this country. The Tillards have a coat of arms that is handed through the generations to the eldest son. Because of all this, my involvement with the global intelligence apparatus has been extensive. As I began to untangle myself from the project, I was directly helped by renegade factions in British intelligence and the NSA, who want to see Mannequin shut down. I was given an Umbra, one level above top secret, security clearance by this NSA faction and debriefed on deeper aspects of the program and things that changed me for life. Because of what I was told and shown, I will never be the same again. Most of this will be detailed in this book, and various official documents that have my name and number will also be included. There are both positive and negative factions in the NSA and British intelligence involved in an internal war with each other. In fact, the whole global intelligence community has descended into chaos with much infighting going on between rival factions, often in the same organizations. I was also given some technology that was created by the NSA in the 1960s, which opens up neural pathways in the brain to recover memories that have been suppressed in the mind control projects. Amongst other things, I have been provided with highly classified documentation that teaches how to control your own brain waves and master and take control of myself instead of the project controlling me. Brainwave control is a large part of Project Mannequin, and people breaking free of it need to be able to control their own brain waves. These self-mastery methods I have taught are similar to very advanced meditation, but using machines and advanced physics created by PhD biophysicists. I am now 31 years old, and around this age, the neural pathways in the brain that hold back memories of mind control procedures often begin to open up, and the victim begins to remember in detail what happened to them in the facilities where the procedures occurred. Often, a sleeper is killed before their 30th birthday because of this. This is known in intelligence circles as being thrown from the Freedom Train. Freedom Train is code speak for the vast numbers of civilian victims who are being used in the many mind control projects in this country and abroad. Specific programs that hold instructions for tasks, and even enhanced abilities, are installed into Project Mannequin victims' memories. In the project, you are taught things like how to access psi ability and how to tag a room, a person, a vehicle, etc., advanced combat, crowd control, psychological warfare, torture and interrogation techniques, etc. This information is stored in compartments in my mind that only the handlers of the project had access to and could bring forth using hypnotic triggers. That was until my memories started to come back in detail in 2006, and the amnesic barriers around these compartments began to break down. With the right help and my deprogramming efforts, I am slowly accessing more and more of this information. At least 5 Mannequin programs and a whole bunch of related sub-projects have been uncovered in me. These have been installed into me and are classified under Greek letters, which are also the name of specific brain waves. For example, alpha, beta, delta, gamma, theta, and omega. The theta program is a psi/telepathy program that enables me to physically see scalar-based radio sound waves. I can also manipulate these sound waves with my mind. The most important technology the intelligence community uses is scalar/radio sound based. You can therefore imagine how important this ability would be to an individual involved in espionage. The brain has the ability to receive, give off, and manipulate radio waves. If you hold a glass or a shell to your ear, the static-like hissing sound, like the sound of rushing air, is the glass or shell acting as a container and capturing the radio sound waves that the brain is giving off. The brain has a telepathic receiver and transmitter that uses sound waves. In fact, thoughts are simply scalar sound waves that most people cannot see but are very real. Hence telepathy, televisions, and telephones. I have photos that will be shown in this book of me manipulating scalar/radio waves. It is possible to catch them on digital camera. Imagine my surprise last year when the parts of my brain that hold psi ability from the project started to integrate with my everyday personality. I was seeing waves of light coming off people's heads, off of antennas on people's houses and cars, and off of mobile phone masts. I thought I was going crazy until one of my friends explained what they were and showed me how you can take pictures of these radio waves. It's a strange thing to describe. Sound waves look like someone has dropped a pebble into a pond, and ripples are coming out in circles and waves. From my understanding, sound is the secret of life, and PhD scientists who work for the NSA know this well. That is why advanced physics is kept so secret and out of the public domain. There has recently been a film released called The Secret, which claims that a person can create the reality around them using their thoughts. When I saw the film, I immediately noticed this was just watered down physics the NSA had taught me in the past. I have done things in the past year like getting my information out to millions of people through radio shows, magazines, and the internet using the methods I was taught by this positive cell in the NSA. They call this MPO, Manifest Production Observership, and LERM, Light Encoded Reality Matrix. Without getting into the technical nitty-gritty, LERM relies on the integrated functioning of 3 important organs in the body: the cortical brain complex, which includes the old reptilian, old mammalian, and necrotic brains, the heart, and the visceral or enteric brain. LERM is taught to initiates of the highest levels of Freemasonry, as well as the NSA people. It is fairly simple once you break it down, and people who understand it can manifest their desires into reality extremely quickly. This would seem like magic to the uninitiated, but so would have televisions and radio waves to the someone a couple of 100 years ago. This secret technology is years more advanced than anything in the public domain and is science that was developed at the Pine Gap Underground NSA in Australia, as well as other places. I will be putting some of these NSA physics documents in this book, so you can learn how to do it as well, even though certain factions do not want this information getting out. These documents point towards pure consciousness existing as pure sound on a higher frequency or dimension, but more on this later. Other Mannequin programs that have been installed into me are known as Janus/End Times. Janus is a sleeping program that activates when major events happen, like 9/11 and the coming plan for martial law in America, which some researchers refer to as the New World Order. Janus is the two-headed Roman god of change. I am actually against time to be deprogrammed before events like martial law in America start to happen. If I am not deprogrammed in time, I may be used by certain factions in the global intelligence community to advance their agendas. Private security firms are now being set up in the UK, run by programmed operatives and connected organized crime members, to run the country when the police cannot control the chaos. Such firms as Noonan Security in Manchester, run by Manchester crime lord Dominic Noonan of the Noonan crime family. I am sorry for his recent loss when his brother was murdered, but big things are planned for these militia-type groups. An ex-Secret Service friend of mine, who I will refer to as Carl, was even in the process of setting one up in Cornwall with ex-hitmen on the payroll. He asked me if I was interested and said he was recently in the Middle East securing funding from the Zionists in Israel. I know other genetically enhanced men who have had millions of pounds and dollars in procedures spent on them. Some of their stories will be presented in this book. Some of these individuals have not been used out in the public yet and are on ice waiting for their Janus programs to activate. I was recently sent intelligence regarding a 19-year-old man who recently disappeared in the US after breaking his programming. It turns out he has many of the above-mentioned NSA programs installed in him. I have read his deprogramming session reports, and he is among a growing number of people who have approached me to get out of similar projects. I have hypnotic commands that have been installed into me called Wernicke commands. These were given to me in a drug and electroshock state when I was hypnotized in the project. Some of these Wernicke's commands, put in me by NSA doctors, are: this is not happening, never talk about this or people will think you are crazy, if you talk about this people will hate you, this is all a dream, this is a movie, if you start to remember you have a panic attack, if you start to remember you will die. Mind control is just that, total mind control of an individual so they can be triggered into doing anything the handlers instruct. These programs can be activated using hypnotic triggers such as keywords and phrases, and patterns with certain and long radio waves that activate tiny microchips injected in the body. There are photos of some of these chips in this book. The cranial implant I had in 1988 when I was 11 years old was an old Tetra series device. I have now been upgraded but was not told the name of the piece of hardware. As long as the hypnotic trigger is in the right sequence, the sleeper can be activated. Sleeper agents can be activated for tasks over the phone, as well. The following is a procedure used by ProjectMannequin to set tasks and upload data into cranial implants that victims of the projects have been installed with. This is done by computer at the AL/499. Pre-programmed tasks for sleepers have been installed into the base's security computer years ago, as the project has a life plan for individuals to advance its agenda. This information was given to me by Barry King, a former AL/499 security officer. 1. Base security computer finds individual's phone number, and dials. 2. Assume the individual answers the phone. Hello. 3. Base computer then checks voice print, if matched, then continues. 4. Electrical code signal is sent down the phone line to activate the microchip inside the individual's body. Once this happens, the person is hypnotized and in a trance. A code is then relayed over the phone. This is an example of a real mannequin code: Lima, 1, 1, 7, 2, Bravo, Mike. 5. The individual awaits further code and instructions. 6. A second electrical signal is sent down the phone line, followed by the remaining code. The puppets are mobile, and it is we who pull the strings. 7. The individual is now fully primed and ready to either receive or send data and receive task details. If someone else answers the phone and the base security computer does not recognize the voice print of that person, then the call is terminated. If an answer phone is on again, the call is immediately terminated. As I said, you can be tasked to do anything, so it is very important to be deprogrammed. This is not easy, though, because when one layer of programming is uncovered, another one is usually found underneath it. It can take years to strip away the layers, as so many programs are present. The White Tiger program is a combat program that uses martial arts, and it automatically kicks in if I feel threatened. I have been practicing martial arts since I was 6 years old, as my mother would force me to go to karate as a child. In Project Mannequin, if one family is being used, then all of the other immediate family will be, too, to a lesser degree than the targeted person. This is a security method, otherwise the close family would realize something is very wrong with the targeted person and start to investigate. I have a 9th Q grade in Shotokan Karate, a 6th cup in Taekwondo, and have years of experience in boxing, kickboxing, and Kung Fu through training at many different clubs in Reading and Cornwall. I also fought a French kickboxing champion in Coventry in the 90s, which I have on film, and have got the better of highly ranked boxing and judo champions in full contact sparring sessions. In one sparring session in 1998 when I was 21, I threw and solidly connected with 4 punches in just over a second. I have this on videotape and will be releasing it along with other footage on my website. There are many different types of agents in Project Mannequin, with different types of abilities. There is what is known as Type A and Type B, for example. Type A is a genetically enhanced human designed for combat with espionage capabilities. Type B is designed for espionage with combat capabilities. I am a Type B in the project. One of the first memories I have of the base from childhood was as follows: I was drugged at the time and the memory is still very hazy. When we arrived, I was taken into lab and strapped into a seat that looked like a dentist's chair. There was a large screen in front of me, and I was injected with another drug. I later found out the name of the drug. It is an accelerated learning drug called scopolamine. Another drug is also used, called dithanol C. One man stood to the left of the chair, and another man stood to the right. They were both dressed in lab coats. The man on the right said to me, "If you forget everything we've told you, try and remember one thing, he'll try and convince you that pain feels like pleasure." He pointed to the other man when he said this. Images then started to appear on the screen in front of me, and I do not remember anything after that. I managed to track down a man called Barry King, who was a former security guard at the AL/499 underground base, and went to visit him at his house in Essex. Barry showed me a diagram of these programming seats, which the NSA refers to as trip seats. A copy of Barry's trip seat diagram is in this book. I had never heard the seat referred as this before I became familiar with this man. The diagram he showed me was exactly as I remember the seat I was programmed in. There are computer banks to the front and rear of the trip seat and a control console in a room at the back and to the left of the trip seat. 2 seats, which the programmers sit in, are in this room. This security officer witnessed many of the strange things I saw in Project Mannequin. Not least, small military biorobots that are part machine and part organic, known as PLFs, programmable life forms. These are short, gray-colored beings used for many in the project. The PLFs are developed in 3 stages, and each stage has its own section in the base. There are up to 500 stored at any one time, and these are used in the AL/499 and also shipped to various military bases in this country and overseas. The development between stages is rapid and is approximately 3 months. Depending on what the PLFs are being used for, they have 3 fingers and a thumb, and some have 4 fingers and a thumb. Again, sketches by Barry King are provided in this book of the PLFs and their storage areas. At many points in the project, I endured intense and horrific torture known as pain-pleasure reversals. This played a large part in the mind control and memory erasure procedures. This will be discussed in greater detail, and the reasons for this outlined. Because of this, I have parts of my mind that are buried alive in my subconscious. This, along with the fact that the procedures occurred underground, is the reason for the title of this book. The memories that I have uncovered about my part in the project are only the tip of the iceberg. However, with the time, effort, and working with the right professionals who specialize in deprogramming mind control, I will be able to put the pieces of my life back together. My motivation for doing this is to eventually be part of shutting ProjectMannequin down and exposing the NSA personnel who are involved in this horrific mind control and genetic experimentation. I did not volunteer for this, and the people running the project, such as Mr. Whitmore, former head of the project, codenamed Sentinel, Mr. Sams, head of security, Mr. Hodge, Dr. Pearson and Dr. Perkovsky, Commander Clavius and Commander Breaker, as well as the new generation of scientists, doctors and torturers, will pay dearly. Chapter 2, The Return of the Watchers. The reason this book is the first of its kind is because, along with my testimony, it includes official letters of recommendation and verification from high-level operatives in the intelligence community. One of these men is a member of the 33rd degree of Zion Illuminati. He holds an Umbra, 8 levels above top secret, NSA and DOE, Department of Energy, security clearance, which only 500 people in the US hold, and works in various military bases in Tennessee. I am considered a military genius, their words not mine, by certain members of the intelligence apparatus for my high level of accuracy in remote viewing vectors. I have recently completed RV work for Lincoln, my Illuminati contact, and a section of British intelligence. My vector intention was set at 2 locations. 1. NSA headquarters at Fort Meade, Maryland. 2. An underground facility in Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Both sessions were confirmed as accurate by the Black Ops community and mentioned in the letter by Lincoln. Other recent RV sessions that received feedback as very accurate include 3. An underwater NATO facility off the coast of Corfu in Greece. 4. The Chrysanthemum Underground Biogenetics Facility in Dulce, New Mexico. Even with Lincoln's high security clearance, he has come against a brick wall when attempting to access my ProjectMannequin files. The personal details of my Mannequin files are so highly classified, the documents are Class 8, which means they cannot be accessed on the NSA database and must be collected or read on paper by hand. The operative must have a need to know. My files are stored in secure NSA facilities at Ashburton in Devon in the UK, Fort Meade in Maryland, and a facility in Utah. My Umbra files are stored at a facility in Linville, North Carolina. The remote viewing session I vectored for British intelligence was actually the secure vault at Fort Meade, where the Class 8 files are stored. This vault contains hardware so advanced it can detect remote viewers entering through tiny fluctuations in air and then disable them with electromagnetic/scalar waves. A small amount of my files have been located by an NSA operative, whom I will refer to as Silas, and given to me and the British intelligence faction I am involved with. This man is deeply embedded with ProjectMannequin himself but cannot access over half of my files. The people running the AL/499 facility in Berkshire and the connected underground bases are a hardline military regime that is ultimately a religious cult centered around the corrupt Zionists and Rosicrucians. These places are religious centers where so-called black magic rites are performed, ancient deities worshipped, and children trained and sacrificed. As former Illuminati member Leo Zagami says, black magic, the control of electromagnetic energy for harm, is the oldest form of military technique known to man. We are told in the mainstream media that children in uncivilized countries such as Burma, Africa, and South America are forced to join the military and kill for their country. Well, guess what people, this exact same situation happens right here in the UK and the US, you are just not told about it. This situation is slowly changing with people like Kathy O'Brien, Duncan O'Finioan, Andy Perro, Svali, Cisco Wheeler, and others coming forward who were used by their governments for covert operations and trained from a very young age. These people are all from America, however, and the situation in this country is that Barry King and I are the only talking survivors of black projects in the UK. I am considered the youngest talking survivor of mind control projects in modern history. To understand ProjectMannequin, we must get a basic understanding of the belief system of the people running it. I will not attack the Rosicrucian and Zionists as a whole because I know many great and noble men in these orders who have aided me in my cause to stop the horrors of the program. I count these individuals as my kinsmen. From my understanding, many of the secret religious orders of today, such as the Magi, the Zoroastrians, the 33rd degree of Zion, the White Lotus Society, the Rosicrucians, etc., are divided into two main factions. One is loyal in their beliefs to the so-called fallen angels, who were loyal to the fallen angel Lucifer, at the time of the Great Flood mentioned in the Bible. The Magi and Zoroastrians are known as the Muslim Illuminati and have centers in the UK, such as 440 Alexandra Street, Harrow, Middlesex, HAZ9TL, tel. 020-88660765. There are also Muslim Illuminati centers in Rayners Lane in London. The Rosicrucian Illuminati have centers in the UK at places such as the Francis Bacon Lodge in Peckham, London, and their HQ, which is at Greenwood Gate, Black Hill, Crowborough, TN61XE, tel. 018926539197. The White Lotus Society is known as the Chinese Illuminati and has over 250,000 assassins working for them. Former 32nd degree Mason Benjamin Fulford has been in contact with me and offered me protection by the White Lotus Society if I came to the East. However, this is not viable at the present time. Benjamin was threatened by ninjas working for the Western Illuminati when working in Japan and came under the wing of the White Lotus Society because of this. There is now open war between the two factions. Google Chinese Secret Society warns Illuminati to understand this. The fallen angels were known in Hebrew as Iron, meaning those who watch. This is translated into Greek as Grigori, meaning watchers. Other factions of these secret societies base their teachings around more Christian principles and the ancient Book of Enoch. This ancient text includes accounts of the watchers, and many of the early Christian church leaders used the work from the 1st to the 3rd centuries AD. During the age of the Church Fathers, from the 4th century onward, the Book of Enoch started to become suppressed. This led to the strange decision by Saint Augustine, AD 354-430, that the Book of Enoch was too old, Obinemian Antiquitatum, to be included in Scripture. Rabbi Simeon ben Jacques also worked toward the book being pushed underground when he declared that all are cursed who believe angels are flesh and blood beings that physically came to earth. This is exactly what they are, however. What we know as angels are extraterrestrial beings, as anyone investigating subjects mentioned in this book is starting to realize. The belief in physical angels was declared as heresy, and the text did go underground and straight into the hands of the secret societies. The benevolent sections of the Illuminati and other secret societies are loyal in their beliefs to the angels of Yud-Vav-He, which is one of the Hebrew names of God. This is why the real secrets of Freemasonry are taught at the 33rd degree. The Watchers descended from other planets onto Earth in ancient times onto Mount Hermon just north of Dan/Kaish in the Middle East. This mountain is on the 33rd degree latitude. When you reach the 33rd degree of Masonry, you enter the Illuminati degrees and are taught the secrets of the angels. Conspiracy theorists who say that the Illuminati and Freemasonry are responsible for all the evil and corruption in the world do not know what they are talking about. At the same time, I would say that corrupt factions in these groups are responsible for much of world's problems. Do the trials and initiations of Project Mannequin make an individual stronger and wiser? The answer is yes, there is no doubt of this. It also leaves the individual involved with a type of bloodlust that is very dangerous, and many people involved in the project have ended up committing suicide and experiencing chronic drug and alcohol addictions. Many have also developed depression and panic disorders later in life. The use of children in the project is also unacceptable in my view. At this point, I have to ask myself why I was tricked and forced to take part in high-level Rosicrucian rituals, such as the 3-room atrium initiation in 2006. I will discuss this in more detail, but on contemplating this, I have come to the following conclusion. The Illuminists will argue that only individuals trained from childhood in certain blood trials, where each level becomes more dangerous, can survive the military campaigns they will carry out as adults. They say this is not just a matter of national security for any one country but the survival of the human race. What is so horrific that a soldier must be trained from early childhood to endure? The shocking answer is that ProjectMannequin operatives will come face to face, sometimes even in conflict situations, with malevolent and terrifying extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional life forms. These xenobreeds are so terrifying to witness, the sight of one could kill or drive insane most ordinary men. This may sound laughable to the uneducated civilian but is taken deadly serious by those in the highest corridors of power. This happened in the 1960s during the infamous Tulsa battle, when scientists at the genetics facility were taken hostage by reptilian-like extraterrestrial life forms who had been working with the US government underneath the New Mexico desert. The special forces teams who went in for the attempted rescue had to be hypnotized and drugged to cope with the situation. Keep an open mind, and read the following evidence. Arm yourself with the truth, as this situation has now come to a head on this planet and will be in your face in the upcoming years. As my friend Ronnie McMullen says, the truth stands by itself, all alone. The truth needs no help from anything or anyone to be absolute. Some things are facts, and the following is the absolute truth. In 1945, the infamous Project Paperclip was started. This program was run by British intelligence and the American organization called the OSS, Office of Strategic Services. Paperclip involved bringing the leading Nazi scientists in mind control, genetic engineering, and other technological areas to America and Britain after the Second World War. The CIA was created 2 years after this in the American National Security Act of 1947 to handle the massive number of mind control, cloning, and other covert projects that were born from Paperclip. The NSA is the sister organization to the CIA and is now a more powerful entity. 1947 was also the year of the Roswell crash and when Israel was formed. A year later in 1948, a genetic bloodline study was started in Britain to locate gifted children to be used for espionage by the intelligence community. This was called Project Anvil but changed its name to Project Oak Tree in the 1950s. Oak Tree was under the command of the NSA by this time and was being run from Harwell Genetics Laboratories in Oxfordshire. It was connected to all the major hospitals in the UK and was connected to the Mannequin program that I was born into. Mannequin was started in 1972 at the Peasemoor base near where I grew up in Tilehurst, Berkshire. Project Oak Tree was actually set up to locate the descendants of the tribe of Dan, which is the so-called lost tribe of Israel. These Middle Eastern people were of white skin, and the descendants are not actually lost but kept secret. Some people may have heard of the British Israelites, and Gordon Brown is heavily into this school of thought. The tribe of Dan traveled from Dan, Kaish in Hebrew, just below Mount Hermon and went up into Greece around the time of the Exodus. In Greece, they were known as the Spartans. From Greece they traveled to France where they were the Merovingian priest kings and other French royal lines. From France they traveled to Scotland, Ireland and America. They were known as the Tuatha De Danann in Ireland and Celtic clans, such as the Campbells in Scotland. They were worshippers of the goddess of energy, such as Astartes and Ishtar, and were heavily into animal shamanism, such as bird and snake symbology. The eagle is one of their symbols, and the eagle on the American coat of arms and the NSA symbol represents the tribe of Dan. The owl is also another of their symbols, which represents the angel Ishtar. I have only discovered in the last couple of weeks that the Hebrew name for Dan is Kaish. When my 5-year-old daughter was born, I named her Kaisha and I had not even heard of the tribe of Dan at that time. On the way to Truro Hospital, when her mother went into labor, an owl committed suicide by flying into the windscreen of the car. It seemed to direct itself at the car in mid-flight. Kaisha is some kind advanced being. There is a photo of her as a baby projecting a yellow beam out of her third eye/forehead area as she concentrates on a spot on the wall. This photo will be included in this book. This is a very holy bloodline with powerful psi abilities. The Luciferian religions believe that by abusing children and people of this bloodline, they are directly attacking God. The Watchers had good and evil amongst them. Archangel Michael is named as a physical watcher in the Middle East in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The battle between the sons of light and the sons of darkness is mentioned in this work. This battle still rages today. Some say Project Oak Tree was ultimately looking for the human descendants of the Watchers. We have to ask ourselves, why are the 12 tribes of Israel so important, and who physically seeded these bloodlines? The answers we are given by the religious institutes of the world, such as they are God's chosen people, will not suffice anymore. People ask, why are they called the Watchers? The answer seems to be because of their ability to project their consciousness out of the body and perform an ancient form of advanced remote viewing. Chapter 3, The Modern History of Behavior Modification. By the 1970s, a huge number of mind control projects in Britain and America were underway, as they became rampant and started to affect many areas of society. During the Second World War, the Nazis were involved in creating genetically enhanced soldiers and spies with psionic and psychic ability, such as telepathy and telekinesis. They were known as Übermen, which is German for Superman. They were basing their new man on a race of warrior Pleiadian humanoids they had come into contact with from Aldebaran. The German scientists developed a technique at the concentration camps known as trauma-based mind control. They discovered that if you could systematically traumatize an individual, particularly before the age of 5, their mind would shatter into different parts, which the German doctors called alters. When the torture or terror becomes so intolerable, a person's mind will dissociate itself from the pain and the alter will be created. These alters can then be programmed by the torturer to carry out almost any task. From my understanding, the limit is reached when operatives are ordered to kill their own children. Old occult books were researched, such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Necronomicon. The Nazi scientists also discovered that when an individual was traumatized and tortured, they developed almost superhuman abilities, such as huge pain tolerance, photographic memory, and psi abilities. The ancient rites of Satanism were often used, and these rituals usually involved snakes. Through my own experiences and talking to other survivors, a common theme is coming up time and time again: being bitten by poisonous snakes in rituals to transmute the poison and enhance the immune system. American Indian shamans also practiced this. Much of the project involved being taken to the point of death and then revived. Kathy O'Brien, in her book Transformation of America, calls some of the CIA programming centers near-death training centers. The snake rituals often finish with the participant being buried alive with their fear. This involves being put in a coffin with a number of large snakes and then being buried in the ground and left there for hours. When dug up, the subject has gone beyond fear, according to the handlers. I'm still trying to work out if this is true, as I have no fear of very dangerous things but have massive panic attacks at small insignificant things. This is an ancient technique that was used in Egypt and many other places. A child would be picked as a candidate for a certain mystery school. Some of these mystery schools used more compassionate training methods, but all of them involved facing fears and danger at the upper levels. I was always taken through a 3-room atrium ritual in ProjectMannequin. I had to learn what was actually happening in later years through study of the Rosicrucian teachings. The ancient and modern shamans were taken into 3 rooms. In the first room, they were asked questions by the master, such as, "Do you wish to know the mystery of your being?" The initiate said yes, and they were then taken into the second room. In this room they were shown such magical secrets as ancient artifacts. In the third room they had to pass a dangerous test, such as fighting another mystery school member or a wild animal. Certain cultures, such as the Celtic people, practiced psi phenomena for generations in ancient rituals. Modern individuals and families of these old bloodlines made the most suitable candidates for trauma-based mind control because, although they may not have practiced psi abilities themselves, these abilities were still in the person's genetic memory from their ancestors. This discovery, combined with trauma-based mind control and the latest advancements in military technology, made a very powerful recipe for the creation of a Überman. The implications of this for groups that wish to control the world are obvious. Heinrich Himmler and the Special Projects Unit of the SS ordered a Nazi research program into Northern European families. The families targeted for this research program were the ones who had practiced multi-generational rites of Freemasonry, occultism, and Satanism. Joseph Mengele, the infamous Angel of Death from the Auschwitz concentration camp, stayed at the Tavistock Mind Control Institute in London when British intelligence brought him here after the Second World War. One of the main projects at the Tavistock Institute was to find the breaking point of human beings. In trauma-based mind control, a mental grid is programmed into the victim using torture and other methods. The victim's mind would then break into 169 fragments or alter personalities. A type of electromagnetic grid would be incorporated into the brain, and this would affect brain waves. With the use of cranial implants, an artificial alpha wave transmission could be sustained in horrific situations. This would enable the operative to stay completely calm in intense situations. Each alter holds memories of the specific mind control procedure and is unaware of the existence of the other alters because of amnesic walls between them. Certain medical symptoms of this procedure have become known today as MPD, multiple personality disorder, or DID, dissociative identity disorder. In mind control cases, each alter or personality can be programmed for a specific task or ability and then called forward using hypnotic triggers. This is done by the handlers of the relevant mind control project to activate the ability and complete the task. These alters are also programmed with post-hypnotic suggestion to forget the task afterward. Only the handlers of the mind control project can call forth the different alters, as only they know the correct hypnotic codes, triggers, and keys to do this. If the mind control victim is a sleeper, a civilian who lives in the public community, even the closest family members of the person will have no idea that they are DID. In rare cases, an individual will realize their mind has been tampered with in one of the vast numbers of government mind control projects and seek help to deprogram their alters. This is possible with hard work and the right kind of professional help. The true origins of trauma-based mind control. Now the next question is, where did the Nazis acquire the super advanced technology? Here we get into an even more sensitive area and go deeper down the rabbit hole. Over the years, many victims of these mind control projects and government personnel have reported witnessing different types of what can only be described as non-human creatures in various underground facilities around the world. I certainly saw very strange things when I spent time at Peasmore and other underground bases. I've lost count of the number of testimonies I've been told from intelligence people who have worked in various underground facilities and witnessed non-human creatures. This begs the question, are these creatures some kind of strange human-animal hybrid or other military genetic creations that were carried on from the Nazi genetic manipulation work? Or, are they extraterrestrial beings from different planets and star systems? The simple answer is both. My colleagues and I have witnessed and communicated with these beings up close and personal. For a greater understanding of the ET situation on this planet, it is important to understand that the upper levels of the German Nazi government, the US government, and the British government were not only aware of ETs at the time of the Second World War, but were actively working alongside them. This had been going even before the Second World War in the 1930s. The following is a brief summary of the modern history of government involvement with ETs. Extraterrestrials and government treaties. On July 11, 1934, the first treaty between the beings, which have become known as the Small Greys, approximately 3.5-foot gray beings with large wraparound eyes from the Orion star system, and the U.S. federal government, under President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, occurred aboard a naval ship at the port city of Balboa, Panama. This was one of the most important events in human history because it thrust us into a role we were not prepared for as regards becoming host to a malevolent, extraterrestrial race. Although there are benevolent Zayton Greys, These entities did not have humanity's best interests at heart. The US government completely disregarded the Constitution of the United States by doing this and not telling the American people. It was here that the agreement was first made between the Greys, who were actually representing a race of reptilian-like beings from the Draconis star system, and representatives of the US intelligence community. The treaty stated that in return for the Greys providing high technology, the US federal government would allow the Greys to proceed unhindered with human abductions for use in an ongoing ET genetic program. The Americans stated they would only agree to the terms if a list of abductees was provided to the government and the abductees returned unharmed with their memories of the event erased. The Greys provided anti-gravity devices, metals and alloys, environment, free energy, and medical technology in return for this. These Greys basically said they would provide this hardware in exchange for being allowed to infiltrate human society on all levels. This they did and started to replace important world leaders with clones under their control. 7 years after this treaty, in 1941, the Greys approached the German government and Hitler. A treaty was then arranged with the Nazis. The Greys offered mind control and other technologies to the Germans, and in return wanted human subjects to conduct their genetic experiments on. The information I have is that Hitler told the Greys they were not to touch the German Aryan people but could do what they wanted with the people in the concentration camps. In the last century, Germany and America have been the main areas of Grey and reptilian invasion, as you can see by the vast amounts of people going missing in America lately. This is why the Nazis were so involved with cloning technology and experimentation on twins. Approximately 20 people in the US and Germany at the time would have been directly involved in the Grey/human treaties. The information was kept on a strictly need-to-know basis within the governments and secret services. Little has changed regarding Grey, government, and concentration camp issues. We now have the Grey, Draco-reptilian, and government sellouts in Britain and America who are torturing test subjects as we speak, installed into underground concentration camps. Many missing people end up in these facilities and are used as slave labor and test subjects. There is a large underground concentration camp under Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire. Most of these evil places are built on sacred land, such as Stonehenge, to distort the vortex centers. I went to this facility in 2006, taken there by a Delta Special Forces team by plane, and witnessed some of these martial law experiments. One of my former NSA/DO contacts was named Dean Warwick, who died on stage in suspicious circumstances at the Probe International Conference in Blackpool. Dean worked at the Los Alamos and Alamogordo underground facilities in the New Mexico desert. Dean also worked at an underground facility in Hawaii. He saw Greys and reptilians walking around at the Los Alamos facility and also witnessed human test subjects in cages there. Employees at these facilities go through a process known as desensitization before they are allowed in the high security areas, where they may come across ETS and disturbing tests going on. In desensitization, the employees are injected with such drugs as scopolamine, an accelerated learning drug, and shown video footage of ETS and horrific scenes of torture and death to enable them to withstand the things they will see. It is mostly the short Greys that employees of underground bases will come across, as the Draco reptilians keep themselves away from human interaction most of the time. Sometimes, however, an employee will wander down a wrong corridor and see a reptilian. This happened to Dean Warwick, Barry King, and Lincoln. Dean was subcontracted by the NSA in the late 1980s and worked for them until 1992. He was a senior electrical engineer at the Los Alamos facility. He told me there are now over 4,000 underground bases worldwide and many of them have ETS in the high security lower levels. X5 also said the underground concentration camps in America and Britain are known as D4 facilities, deep underground military prisons. The major bases worldwide are mainly under the control of the NSA and are classified D1, deep underground military bases, D2, deep underwater military bases, D3, deep under mountain military bases, and D4, deep underground military prisons, although Lincoln informs me these classifications have now been changed. The Grey and Draco reptilian ETS working together with the upper levels of different countries' governments is known by intelligence insiders as MI6, Military Industrial Extraterrestrial Complex. Another NSA contact, X3, told me that a global Masonic apparatus above the 33rd degree is controlling upper levels of many governments of the world. The 33rd degree is officially the highest Masonic degree, but in reality, there are many degrees above this. This Masonic degree is the first real level of trust, and most Freemasons never get above the lower blue degrees. You are either born into a certain bloodline, or you do something that sets you apart from Joe Public and are brought into the elite inner circle. On level 33, a Mason often gets access to the highly classified areas of the MI6. This Masonic degree is known as the first level of illumination. George Bush Sr. is reported to be above the 42nd degree and is deeply entrenched in the MI6. Insiders also refer to the MI6 as the octopus. The octopus spreads its tentacles. As the MI6 began to expand in the early 40s, the second extension of the 1934 Gray and U.S. government treaty was signed in 1944. This treaty was renewed every 10 years from 1934 to 1964, and the treaties still are being renewed today. Lincoln has just recently visited the Chrysanthemum Biogenetics facility in Dulce, New Mexico, as a new archive system is being set up there. A scientist who has worked there since the 1970s informed him that a new treaty has just been signed. If people want to know the name, email me and remind me to ask Lincoln. I will then attempt to put this information into the public domain. Dr. Dan Burisk of Area 51 informed the public that one of the more recent treaties goes by the code name of Tau with a specific number after the word. I was given permission in writing by a rep of Majestic to approach Dr. Burisk face-to-face in Las Vegas to discuss a biowarfare test I saw conducted on civilians at the Wilshire Underground facility. The rep informed me it was inappropriate to discuss this over email. At the present time, August 15, 2008, I still have not made contact with Dan, although I would like to at some point. There was also a meeting between Majestic and Lincoln in North Carolina, and permission was given for him to work with me. After 1944, much infighting and chaos broke out in the human government factions of the MI6. Factions that were loyal to the people of the planet were battling it out with factions that didn't care about the people and just wanted as much technology as they could get their hands on. As well as assassinations and cover UPS, the most important part of the battlefield was information warfare. Positive MI6 factions would leak information into the public about the true ET situation, and then negative factions would come behind them and cover it up with damage containment and psychological warfare programs for the public, known as chicken feed. Chicken feed still goes today and has become more complex and confusing. Without wires, intel speak for inside connections, it is almost impossible to know what is really going in the world. The NSA is all over the internet. They are buying up independent journalists, who are not part of controlled mainstream media, to spread their disinformation campaigns. Hollywood is a major vehicle for this, and the protocol seems to be this: any details of covered projects leaked out are made into a film or included in sections of films, so the uneducated public dismisses all the information as science fiction. Hollywood and NBC producer Bob Kvyat has been in touch with me, and I have helped him with his upcoming documentary about a colleague of mine named Simon Anderson/John Leonard Walson. A friend of the actor Dan Aykroyd has helped me with some of the information in this book. This man is a member of the U.S. intelligence community and has helped Dan write film scripts. He is interested in developing a film script based on my life, but nothing is set in stone when it comes to Hollywood. A colleague of mine named Anthony Pike has also been in touch with Gordon Novel. Gordon is involved with actor Bruce Willis on a new film project called Kingdom Comes. Gordon is heavily connected to the CIA and is the director of the RAM group based in Las Vegas. I am currently waiting to hear from him. We have been told there was a falling out between RAM and Majestic, but with all factions currently sitting around the table for talks, maybe this can be resolved. Let's act like gentlemen and see what can be worked out. Before we go into greater detail regarding the treaties, let's talk more about suppression of real information. Let's take, for instance, the infamous GLP, Godlike Productions, public internet forum. This site has millions of users, but it is controlled by moderators at the Tavistock Institute. There is basically a large room full of computer intel geeks at the facility on Tabernacle Street in London. They control the flow of information here. I posted sensitive information there and had my mother's address in Street Ives put on the thread with indirect threats on her life. I've also had some intel guy with a conscience give me a list of my father's European drug trafficking routes when he was alive. Add to this, there have been unmarked black helicopters pretending to dive bomb my flat 2 hours after posting RV techniques there. That was good for a laugh. Broken promises. By 1944, the Gray-Human Treaty was showing signs of stress, as it was discovered that Greys were abducting more people than they were putting on the government lists. In May 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, the third extension of the Gray and U.S. government treaty was signed, the Grenada Treaty. The Orion Greys and Draco Reptilians blatantly broke the terms, as we shall see later in the book. The Grenada Treaty was agreed upon under the Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico by the Greys and the Ultra Unit of the NSA. The name of the facility under Holloman AFB was codenamed Dandelion, although this may have changed now. The Ultra Unit was one of the most elite and super secret of the NSA factions at the time and was ran by Project Paperclip Nazis who were part of the NSA after 1945. All Ultra members were cloned humans. The original documents of this treaty and the original ET materials from it can be found today in the NSA facility called Blue Moon. Blue is code word meaning extraterrestrial related. Blue Moon is an underground facility beneath Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. The entrance to the base is in the Manzano Mountains. Inside Blue Moon is the technological headquarters of the very secretive DOE, which Lincoln and Dean Warwick work at for. Today, the DOE at Blue Moon is building free energy devices, developed from Gray and Draco reptilian technology, for use in space. Many advanced space-based weapons have been built, as well. MI6 insider Dr. Bill Deagle was told by the director of the U.S. Space Command that they control every cubic centimeter of space between here and Mars. The director also told Bill that they have weapons that would make George Lucas drool if he knew about them. Trillions of dollars have been spent on this technology over the decades since the first modern Gray and Human treaties were started. Bill Deagle points out this is not just one government administration or the transnational corporations involved in these areas. He says we are dealing with malevolent evil on a galactic level. Dr. Bill told me over the phone that he worked with employees of underground facilities in the US who were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder because of witnessing ET/human hybrids and other horrors in these bases. He was also asked to join the 33rd degree illuminated Masonic levels of the MI6. He is considered a dangerous man who knows too much by these groups and was approached by a Frenchman, codenamed Pinder, after Bill's daughter was born. Bill told me Pinder looked to be in his late 50s with a very professional manner. He wore an expensive suit, had manicured nails, and seemed to disappear when he walked off down the street after Bill refused to become part of the organization. Technology exists called thermoptic camouflage that can render a Secret Service man invisible to the naked eye. It is a small device that can be worn on the belt and activated at will. A Secret Service man can also be put through a thermoptic field and will become invisible to the naked eye for over 48 hours. There is no need to carry the thermoptic hardware around if you are put through the field. However, after the 48 hours is up, the agent starts to phase back into sight and becomes violently ill for a short time. An American woman who lived in Nevada contacted me last year and told me she had hired a private detective because of black government-type cars regularly circling her house, parking outside, and following her when she was driving. One night, She was driving along a desert highway and one of the black cars started to follow her again. She managed to lose it by hitting the gas and sharply turning into a quiet side road. She turned the engine off and got out of the car to wait until the car following her had driven off. This woman then told me she heard footsteps crunching on the gravel toward her, but she could see no one there. She said she felt something next to her, and an invisible hand then grabbed her crotch. She panicked and jumped back into her car and drove off. Military advancements and Project Plato. With each ET/human treaty, the governments were becoming more advanced, and there were now groups of people that were literally thousands of years more advanced than the civilian population. For every 1 year that goes by, since the start of these treaties, military technology advances by over 50 years. I heard it best from Phil Schneider, who said that every now and then, the public gets a new computer or some other piece of technology from the MI6, but these are just little trinkets similar to when the early white American settlers would give beads to the Indians. On April 15, 1964, 2 U.S. intelligence personnel met under Project Plato with the Greys in the New Mexico desert to arrange a meeting on April 25 at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. This meeting was to renew the treaty that had started in 1934 again and was a psychological bid to buy time in order to solve the problem of the Greys and Draco reptilians. The upper levels of U.S. intelligence now believed the Greys and Dracos had this planet timetabled for invasion and takeover between the years 2000 and 2030. I have come across huge amounts of evidence that many Greys and Draco reptilians may have actually been on this planet, installed underground, since at least the time of ancient Babylon. They may have been covertly subverting the human surface population over a long period of time in preparation for the return of the fearsome Draco Prime overlords from Alpha Draconis. Around 1887, several disc-shaped craft were observed in the sky. In 1887, U.S. President Grover Cleveland created a secret committee to investigate these objects. He secretly funded the 5-member group. Grover Cleveland was the only U.S. president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. He was the 22nd and 24th President of the United States from 1885 to 1889 and 1893 to 1897. A team run by the 5-member group called the Suits, as they wore black suits, questioned many eyewitnesses. Members of the press were contacted and asked not to report the sightings to the public. John G. Carlisle, Speaker of the House, headed the 5-man committee and they advised the president not to release the information until the facts were understood. The more information they gathered, the more they realized this was a job too big for the small committee. Benjamin Harrison became the 23rd president, and John Carlisle retired as Speaker of the House to devote his time to the strange disc craft. The secret committee then became a secret division of the U.S. government called the Central Group. The Central Group's headquarters was set up in tunnels below Washington, D.C., code-named the Land of Nod. Most of the federal government did not know about the Central Group. At this time, England began seeing strange flying craft. In 1896, the English skies were full of glowing orbs that crisscrossed the sky in the day and night. Queen Victoria appointed a secret group to investigate these flying objects, and secret studies in England led to contact with the Central Group in the US. They quickly joined forces and became the United Nations Intelligence and Tactics Agency for Aerial Phenomenon or Central Unit AAP, also known as UNITAAP or UNITAP. UNITAP was divided into 4 sections. Their symbol became a red cross within a circle, which was associated with the planet Mars. In 1933, Central Unit AAP was officially shorted to the code name Central Unit. Later, this name was leaked in England, and a cover story was created involving various science fiction stories to cover the real activities of UNIT. After this time during the ET and human treaties, UNIT took control of the central core of the National Security Council, NSC, NSA, CIA and ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. Other study groups were then hired to get deeper into the flying disc matter, such the Jason Scholar Group, Project RAND, and Page Research. These groups were connected to MAGIC, Majestic Agency for Joint Intelligence Command, also known as Majestic. Magic security codes were Magic Umbra, Critical, and Ultra. Ultra was above top secret. There is talk of introducing new code words for classification systems. Lincoln has heard the words Corona, AIMPOINT, Hypernova, and ARC. In 1951, there was a Majestic meeting in Paris, France, in which the organization expanded to take in other countries. The cover was MJ, Magnetic Journey, Studies. Majestic was also known as MJ, 12. They met with key powers in 12 countries, the US, England, France, Germany, Canada, Denmark, Russia, Sweden, Norway, Poland, Greenland, and Colombia, with links to other countries in South and Central America. Chapter 4, The River of Love. ProjectMannequin and Hale-Bopp. At the time of the 1934 Gray and U.S. government/UNIT Treaty in Panama, UNIT was involved in the secret infiltration of reptilian ETS into the western U.S. joint underground bases. Many of these bases were hidden underneath Indian reservations, and the primary bases were in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico and Utah. From this point on, the reptilian beings came to this planet in force every 13 years, 1934, 1947, 1960, 1973, 1986, 1999, 2012. Many of my contacts claim this may be the date of the final Draco-reptilian invasion, but I cannot be certain about this. In 1986, the white-colored Draco Prime arrived into our solar system in the Draconian planetoid, which we know on Earth as the Hale-Bopp comet. The Draco Prime, traveling from the planet Typhon in the Draconis star system, was checking on how the takeover of Earth, which they call Sol 3, was coming along. Hale-Bopp kept making course alterations because it was under intelligent control and was photographed with an object behind it, which was a Draco Prime mothership. Hale-Bopp incited a great degree of panic in the human population because we are telepathic beings who can feel danger. This was notable in the mass suicide of the followers of the Heaven's Gate cult that was reported in the mainstream media. They said Hale-Bopp was being followed by an alien spacecraft. I was told by an NSA contact, whom I'll refer to as X3, that the Heaven's Gate cult was under U.S. intelligence trauma-based mind control and that Admiral Bobby Ray Inman ordered the triggering of Omega alters in the cult members. A lot of people in the intelligence community are not going to be happy about me naming old Bobby Ray, but the truth is all coming out now. Omega is a self-destruct, suicide alter that can be triggered in a mind control victim. The reasons for doing this seem to be to discredit all the talk about an alien spacecraft behind Hale-Bopp and to make it seem like religious hysteria. X3 told me there were mind control programmers in the Heaven's Gate cult who were ex-NSA and some of the best programmers in the business. They must have been very advanced programmers because some of the cultists who committed suicide at their mansion in San Diego in 1997 had been persuaded to go through castration beforehand. They were also heavily into yoga, qigong mediation, and had an outstanding diet. X3 says because of this, they had made telepathic contact with the Draco mothership behind the Hale-Bopp comet. He also said that Admiral Bobby Ray Inman had ordered a hotshot, intel speak for a scalar weapon attack to activate sleeping mind control programs in people, and a white van pulled up outside the mansion with NSA agents inside who were armed with frequency generators to remotely trigger the Heaven's Gate sleepers. The following information comes from a U.S. intelligence community contact, X13, who is the friend of Dan Aykroyd. He says the Heaven's Gate people were connected to DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and a government group that currently controls the Internet, called SAIC. Several of the cult members were involved in advanced computer projects, and others created websites. Beverly Hills computer businessman, and former car thief, Nick Matsourakis employed about a dozen cult members to design worldwide websites. Nick Matsourakis was one of the men who found the bodies at the mansion. He went on to help raise $54 million in an internet venture called ussearch.com. Then he founded a company in China with his partner, none other than Nicholas Rockefeller. Their company was called Global Agora and is one of the first U.S. companies to have been launched in China. The Heaven's Gate Group started an underground housing complex. They built part of it and were then disrupted, so they would be forced to relocate to a place where they could be monitored more effectively. X13 also claims that Bobby Inman's hitmen suicided the cult members to discredit the reports of an ET ship behind Hale Bopp, and also because the Heaven's Gate people had encryption programs that would make it impossible for the intelligence community to spy on internet users. Bobby Ray Inman was ex-director of the CIA, former head of the NSA, a retired four-star admiral in the Navy, and one-time Clinton nominee for Secretary of Defense. A website with information about Bobby Inman's connection to the cult member deaths recently disappeared off the internet. Samkau Chesfahani, an Iranian immigrant, was the man who is reported to have rented the multi-million-dollar mansion in San Diego to the Heaven's Gate Group. The cultists put together a movie script about the return of the Draco reptilians to Earth. The NSA did not want this movie made, and this fact contributed to Bobby Inman's decision. The Rockefeller family is connected to this tragedy and is interested in reptilian stories for means of control. Years before, the Rockefeller family was involved in the October 30, 1938 Mercury Radio Network's War of the Worlds broadcast. Orson Welles' broadcast was no mere show business stunt but an experiment in fear. The broadcast was a psychological warfare test to test the public's reactions to ET news. The reaction from the broadcast was mass panic and one man committed suicide. A grant from the Rockefeller Foundation to Princeton University helped create the Princeton Office of Radio Research. The director was Paul Laserfield, an Austrian Jewish émigré and social psychologist. He teamed with two associates, psychologist Hadley Cantrell and CBS researcher Fred Stanton, who was a PhD in psychology and who eventually became the network president. One of the men who found the bodies of the 39 cultists arrayed in neat rows on a balmy afternoon, Nick Matsourakis, became instantly famous. Soon, he sold the rights to the story of the Heaven's Gate Group to the Hollywood Entertainment Company, for which he and some of the dead cultists worked. A probation officer saw him on national TV after this and recognized him as a wanted felon who skipped out on his sentence. He was jailed and returned to Cleveland. Nick Matsourakis sold production of Story of the Cultist Deaths to Adnan Khashoggi's Genesis subsidiaries. Professor Courtney Brown, a tenured political science professor at Emory University in Atlanta, author of Cosmic Voyage, and president and owner of Farsight Institute, a company specializing in scientific remote viewing, appeared on Art Bell's radio show. Brown said their remote viewers had found the mysterious companion to Hale Bopp to be larger than Earth, hollow, and under intelligent control, a kind of planetary spaceship hitching a ride on a comet or hiding behind it. Brown stated there was ET life on Mars and that the civilization there was dying, so the ETS started an underground colony in New Mexico. Brown appeared again on Art Bell's program along with his assistant, Prudence Calabrese. Brown told listeners that a well-known astrophysicist at a top 10 university sent Brown information confirming Farsight's remote viewing results. Calabrese today heads a commercial venture called Transdimensional Systems in San Diego. She claims to have been part of the CIA's effort to learn more about the Soviets through remote viewing and especially in a CIA project channel through Stanford Research Institute in California. Calabrese and her 14 employees are currently working with San Diego FBI, assisting in remote viewing of dangerous criminals. On March 26, 2007, after X13 finished briefing me on the Heaven's Gate information, he said he sat down and turned on the TV. When he switched the TV on, the words Heaven's Gate came on the screen. X13 turned the sound up, and it was a CNN program called Anderson Cooper 360. Cooper said, the largest mass suicide, 39 members of the Heaven's Gate cult, occurred 10 years ago today. How is that for coincidence? In reality, there is no such thing as higher consciousness giving us signs when we have found the truth. Anderson Cooper went on to interview Rio D'Angelo, real name Richard Ford. He was known inside the Heaven's Gate cult as Neody. Rio found the bodies and videotaped them before calling 911 to report the deaths. He was a member of the cult from 1994 to 1997. He left the group 4 weeks before the 39 members committed suicide with a cocktail of drugs, after coming to believe that a spaceship would be taking them to heaven. D'Angelo discovered the bodies on March 26 after he received 2 videotapes that described the cult members' intentions. He wrote a book about his experience called Beyond Human Mind, The Soul Evolution of Heaven's Gate. In a Newsweek interview, D'Angelo also said Heaven's Gate cult leader Marshall Herff Applewhite was frightened by the 1993 police siege of the Branch Davidian compound near Waco, Texas, and thought the FBI was stalking his group. D'Angelo said the cultists thought there was no gender at the next level, so they adopted an androgynous look and shunned sex. Once Applewhite got castrated, 5 other cultists did the same. The 39 members were found dead at their rented mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, San Diego, California. The victims ranged in age from 26 to 72. Among the victims was Thomas Nichols, brother of Nichelle Nichols, who starred in the original Star Trek TV show. The suicide victims ingested lethal levels of phenobarbital. On Tuesday, March 25, D'Angelo received a videotape from the 39 members, which included 18 women and 21 men, saying farewell and announcing their intent to shed their physical containers and be lifted up to an ET ship reported to be following the Hale-Bopp comet. Many professionals observed and photographed an object 2,000 kilometers behind the comet until January 10. The object, Draco ship, behind the comet became known as the Saturn-like object or SLO. The following morning on Wednesday, March 26, D'Angelo told Nick Matsourakis about the tape and expressed fears that the group may have committed suicide. The 2 men drove to San Diego and arrived at about 11 a.m. D'Angelo then entered the home, and after viewing the dead, did not phone the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. Only when he left the mansion did he call the police at 1:34 p.m. D'Angelo returned to LA with Matsourakis, and they closely listened to the news radio but did not hear anything about what he reported to the police. D'Angelo then called the Beverly Hills Police Department at 3 p.m., and they referred him to the San Diego Sheriff's Office. They said they knew nothing. Arriving at the scene at 3:30 p.m. were Deputy Sheriff Robert Brunk and Deputy Sheriff Laura Gasek. From the moment the officers pulled up, Brunk said he knew something was wrong. The drapes were pulled, the windows were pulled, and the outdoor lights were burning in the sunshine. Brunk found the front door locked, the windows closed, and a side door unlocked. The Heaven's Gate leader Marshall Herff Applewhite had links to 19th-century occultists. Madame Blavatsky and novelist Samuel Langhorne Clemens, better known as Mark Twain. The Heaven's Gate mansion at 18241 Colina Norte is just down the street from the San Diego River. This was a favorite spot of Mrs. Catherine A. Tingley, a disciple of Madame Blavatsky. Mrs. Tingley moved to San Diego in 1896 and founded an ashram of the Theosophical Society at Point Loma. The center opened February 25, 1897 with a ceremony attended by several prominent people in San Diego, including the mayor. Like the Heaven's Gate group, the Theosophical Society was in telepathic contact with extraterrestrial beings, and like Applewhite, Mrs. Tingley believed a major cataclysm would sink most of California and end Western civilization. She predicted San Diego would survive to become the capital of an island nation called Nuevo California. In 1907, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, aka Mark Twain, wrote a short story called Extract from Captain Stormfield's Trip to Heaven, in which the hero leaves Earth for an extended excursion among the heavenly bodies on the tail of a comet. In the story, the hero has his passport on him, plus $5 and 3 25-cent pieces for the fare. Many of the Heaven's Gate victims had their passports on their persons and $5.75 in their hands. Also, the New Age term, evolutionary level above human, ELAH, Spells hail backwards. The Heaven's Gate group made a film script and gave it to Alex Pappas, head of Way Out Pictures. They wrote the script while renting Pappas' house on Mummy Mountain in Paradise Valley in Phoenix. When the cult members learned he was a producer, they turned the script over to him, along with $3,400 in rent. When Alex Pappas was asked by a journalist if all of this was slightly apocalyptic, he replied, "Are you kidding? It's the flavor of the day. It's a very Shakespearean type of story." Pappas said, "Good versus evil, a big battle." Without giving away the ending, he promised the script would be perfect for Hollywood. "Good wins in the end," he said. Titled Beyond Human, Return of the Next Level, Pappas said, "The screenplay came in a bit wordy, what with all the talk of aliens tromping around Earth trying to find humans suitable to zap up to the Orion Nebula. It was also crowded with characters. The original draft featured more than 100 speaking parts. But the authors were willing to modify their script and bring it down to a more manageable level. But it is something very, very valid. The allure, of course, is that while most viewers would regard the film as snazzy science fiction, the authors swore it was the straight-up truth. They died believing they were the chosen few hitching that spaceship ride to the next level of human evolution," said Danielle Furlano. While the Heaven's Gate members apparently poured most of their creative energy into the screenplay they gave Pappas, they also drafted the outline for another movie. This one's a sweeping history of Earth's encounters with alien beings as observed by wise and mysterious orbs. "It's very bizarre," said Furlano, who read the script for the second movie. "They'll talk about the reptilians and greys and orbs all arguing about ownership rights to Pluto. The first Heaven's Gate media spin-off may be a half-serious, half-snide documentary based on video footage of the cult members discussing their philosophy at Boise State University in Idaho." Freelance producer Sergio Myers plans to market the 90-minute tape through his company Rising Sunday. He founded a UFO group called Believers of the Unknown. Asked if he was worried about recruiting people to Heaven's Gate through the tape, he responded, I do. But it's business. Many of my peers in global intelligence who know what is going on regarding the ET situation have told me I am being irresponsible by making all of this information public. They claim the public cannot handle the truth. I do not believe this and want to stop treating the public like children. I wish to inform and educate them so they can make informed choices for themselves as the great earth changes and upheavals are starting to occur. The malevolent Dracos are not pleasant. There may be compassionate beings among them, but there is a large section of them that are thoroughly evil and dangerous. This worrying news is balanced out by the fact that there are also many benevolent ETs from various star systems who are here to help us and have been involved in an ancient war with the Dracos. The Dracos are real beings, however, the intelligence community is involved in a psychological operation to make the people of the world fear all reptilian ETs. The Dracos are omnivores and move across planets like locusts for the natural resources, including food, which in this case is us. There will be huge supporting evidence in this book showing they are using us for food. Dracos have 2 hearts, are between 7 to 12 feet tall, and have the strength of 8 to 16 men. They are hard to kill, have psychic and technological skills in battle that are thousands of years ahead of ours, they're cold-blooded, and have no remorse or compassion. There are different colored Draco, but the Draco Prime are white in color and seem to be the royalty or elite of the group. They are seen far less by humans in underground facilities and abductions. The various colored Draco have wings, while the reptilians lower on the hierarchy, seen more often by humans, do not. The wings are made of long, tiny bone spines or ribs that protrude out of their backs. The ribs are adjoined by flaps of leathery, blackish-brown skin, and the wings are usually in a retracted position. Beings matching the description of the Draco have been seen flying using their wings. This was reported in the multiple sightings of Draco-like creatures in the town of Point Pleasant, on which the film The Mothman Prophecies, starring Richard Gere, was based. In several contacts, People have seen reptilian beings wearing capes draped over their shoulders and down their backs. The capes may be a piece of clothing specifically designed for covering the Draco's wings, or their retracted, dark leathery flaps might appear to be a fabric-like material going across and down the shoulders and back. What strikes the eyewitnesses the most about the physical appearance of a Draco being is the horns. The horns are usually short. They are conical in shape and extend 4 to 5 inches away from the skull. Some reports describe low bony ridges back along their conical-shaped heads. These ridges appear midway between the brow and the top of their heads. They appear to have a much more athletic build than the other reptilian beings. Their upper torsos are extremely lean, and their neck muscles splay out from the base of their jaws to their shoulder blades. If the Dracos are able to fly to using their wings, as some people have reported, the physical demands of flight would result in some muscle groups being more developed than others. Certain individuals claiming to have had Draco encounters say they have seen ones with white powdery scales approach and give instruction to the winged Dracos, who are a greenish-brown in color. The white Dracos are the Draco prime. In every one of these cases, the greenish-brown beings appeared to be highly respectful and submissive to the Draco with white scales. This reaction suggests the Draco hierarchy is a caste system dependent on skin color and possibly other unknown genetic traits. The Greys have also demonstrated similar respect for the Draco prime in contact reports. Federation treaties. This situation is so bizarre and gets even more so as we go deeper into highly classified areas. I have been told by my NSA contact, X3, there are at least 118 different extraterrestrial races, that the NSA knows about, involved in the affairs of this planet. The NSA refers to this ET grouping under such titles as the Link and others. There are the benevolent ETs visiting this planet from star sectors such as the Pleiades, Andromeda, Lyra, Tau Ceti, Sirius A, and Ummo, which have been referred to by contacts and Secret Service personnel as the Galactic Confederation of Worlds. Here we are going into complicated Star Wars-type exopolitics. However, there are benevolent factions of Orion Greys and Draco Reptilians and evil factions of Pleiadians, for example. This is obvious, as in any race there are good and evil elements. I wanted to just make this distinction clear because in the so-called New Age movement, there is almost a religious type of obsession with New Age advocates claiming all reptilians are negative and all Pleiadians are here to save us from them. There have also been human/ET treaties with these compassionate races, and their motivations and actions in these areas seem to prove their intentions. In 1934, a group of Pleiadians, tall humanoid beings with blonde hair and blue eyes, approached the U.S. government, under the Roosevelt administration, in an effort to work out an eventual military disarmament arrangement. The U.S. government refused, so the Pleiadians approached Hitler and the Nazis instead. I believe by this time, the Draco Reptilians had taken control of much of the upper levels of the U.S. federal government, and the human puppets would not give up their military weapons. Part of the covert reptilian agenda is to massively reduce the world's population by wars to reduce resistance, if and when the time comes, to the final Draco invasion. The Pleiadians worked out a treaty with Hitler and the Nazis that in exchange for technology the Nazis would not attack the Jewish people. The Pleiadians tried to stop all of this, and their treaty with the Nazis held together until around 1941. I cannot get a very clear picture of what happened after this, as the information is so tightly compartmentalized. It is also hard to see through the massive amounts of propaganda that came out after the Second World War. There was a plan to repopulate the Jewish community from Germany to Madagascar, but this didn't happen because the Madagascans wanted no part of it. The Nazis developed their advanced saucer-shaped aircraft from the Pleiadian technology after the Pleiadians purposely crashed some of theirs in Germany to honor their part in the treaty. The Nazi craft were known as Honba and Vril. The Nazis were not able to copy the Pleiadian anti-gravity drive but found ways around this. By 1941, the Pleiadians pulled out of the treaty and would no longer deal with Hitler and Nazis. It was at this time that the Greys approached them, and this is where the Nazi trauma-based mind control technology came from. On February 20, 1954, around the same time as the Grenada Treaty, a delegation from the Galactic Confederation of Worlds approached the upper levels of the US government. This was an effort to limit the death and destruction of the Grenada Treaty and weapons developed from it. This delegation met with the Eisenhower administration in an unsuccessful attempt to reach an agreement on the US government's thermonuclear weapons program. Some say the stumbling block was that the Federation ETS were not willing to provide technology that might have been used by the military-industrial factions of the Eisenhower administration. Others say many factions of the upper levels of US government were under heavy Draco mind control by this time, and there was no way they were going to give up their nuclear weapons. These protective and peace-loving humanoid ETS also refused to be co-opted into the emerging military, industrial, extraterrestrial complex in the US, Britain, Russia and elsewhere. The Luciferan Wars. The Galactic Confederation has a policy of non-intervention in the history of a planet's developing population. However, like any council, there will be different viewpoints. Now we get into the real secrets of the angels and the ancient galactic battle known by the Pleiadians as the Luciferian Wars. The simple fact is that the beings known in religious texts as Lucifer, Michael, Azazel, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel were/are physical extraterrestrials. Michael is originally based around Aldebaran in the Pleiades, Azazel from the Sirius, Raphael from Regulus, Gabriel from Fomalhaut, and Uriel from Antares. However, all these beings have ultimately deep connections with the Pleiades star system. Lucifer has a very complex story and cannot be covered here. At one time, before the rebellion of the being, they were all ultimately taking orders from Lucifer, and Azazel outranked Michael. Some say Azazel was the first to rebel when God told him he must serve humans, as they were created in his image. Apparently, he said, "Why should a son of fire, angel, bow down before a son of clay, human?" This was the probable cause of the Luciferian Wars of the Watchers. At the time of the fall, Lucifer ordered all his forces and starships to converge in the Lyra star sector. Michael, being the loyal soldier he is, came with his Aldebaran military forces. He was not aware their leader had rebelled against the ultimate authority and was following orders. When he arrived in the Lyra sector, he realized what had happened, and this was the first stage of the war. Azazel and 200 Watchers opened a stargate from Lyra and were the first rebels to arrive on Earth on My Herman. They were quickly pursued by Michael's forces. However, Michael was warned by Uriel that he and his forces would be pulled into incarnation cycles, because of Earth's gravity, if they prosecuted this military campaign against Azazel and his forces on Earth. If Michael was to go through with this, he would become transfixed and trapped in this solar system and the war would rage on for thousands of years. He could not let this evil sweep unhindered across the planet and went ahead with his plan. We are now seeing the final stages of the Watcher Wars played out in front of us. In the best-selling science fiction book series called The Horus Heresy, the Watcher Wars are detailed in incredible detail. The guys writing these books are either high-level Masons or part of the intelligence community. Michael was the genetic father of the tribe of Dan, as he started that bloodline with a female watcher from the planet Huva. You can read hundreds of pages of proof of angels/watchers being physical ETS in Andrew Collins' book From the Ashes of Angels. Andy and Barry King were good friends in the past, and before Andy became famous with his groundbreaking book, they performed a ritual in a certain woodland in the UK with another man. Their aim was to harness the power of the Watchers, and this they did very effectively to cause themselves to go down in the pages of history. Just after this, Andy's book became a bestseller, and Barry King ended up working at the AL/499 underground facility in Berkshire and met ETS face to face. The handlers of ProjectMannequin knew I was coming before I was born, as they viewed my life on the Zayton looking glass technology that is kept at Area 51 and other places. I am briefed on every current looking glass session by Lincoln, but it does not always get it right. The machine only views possible futures. Talmud of Jmmanuel. At about 1080, the last Pleiadian leader called Plages left Earth for good because Pleiadians finally achieved peace there. They felt it was time for humans to evolve on their own. The next Pleiadian spiritual leader on Earth was called Jmanuel. Michael still physically comes to this planet on occasions, as he is now free of his karmic bonds. However, his spirit lives in the bodies of his human descendants as walk-ins who carry on the Watcher War under his directives. The Son becomes the Father and the Father the Son. You shall watch my life through your eyes, as your life shall be watched through mine. Sound familiar? An ancient text known as the Talmud of Jmanuel was found in 1963 in a cave in Jerusalem. The ancient scrolls had been encased in tree resin and buried for almost 2,000 years when they were discovered by Isa Rashid, who was a Lebanese priest of the Greek Orthodox Church, and by Billy Edward Albert Meyer, the famous man from Switzerland who was visited by Pleiadians on his mountain. There has been a huge campaign to discredit Billy Meyer, but I can tell you he is 100% the real deal. The two men have since been persecuted by fundamental religious organizations and shadow governments. Isa, who had the original text, had to escape Jerusalem and go to Lebanon to avoid assassination and destruction of the scrolls. Most of the text was burned and lost in an Israeli air raid on a Lebanese refugee camp in 1974. Isa and his family escaped but were later murdered in Baghdad. 1/4 of the original script had been translated from Aramaic into German by then and mailed to Billy Meyer in Switzerland. Billy edited and published the German version of the Talmud Jmanuel in 1975. Billy has survived more than a dozen assassination attempts on his life. James Deardorff, Professor Emeritus at the Oregon State University, is a stout proponent for the authenticity of the text. He has spent the last 16 years studying and comparing the scrolls with biblical scriptures. The book can be ordered on the internet. Chapter 5, Born into the Project. 1981 to 5 years old. Taken from Chal Grove Primary School in Finchley, London by two men and driven to Greenham Common Military Base. Transported to Bravo location at Greenham Common and taken underground to the AL/499 facility with 15 other children for testing of psi abilities. This session included a ritual in which one of the children, a small girl, was thrown into a cage with an attack dog and murdered in front of the rest of us. This entire event filmed. Video probably passed around intelligence community as a snuff film. The 15 children left were divided up into 3 groups of 5 for future training. Age of children seemed to range from approximately 5 to 10 years old. Session culminated in first Osiris genetic engineering procedure. Just after this, my mother enrolled me in martial arts training in Finchley with a sadistic instructor. Details of the programming session as follows. Warning, disturbing reading. I was living with my mother in Finchley, North London at the time, and my father had just come out of prison in Spain for drug trafficking and was living in Reading at the time. I remember one early afternoon at this time being driven to the Greenham Common military base in Berkshire by 2 men in a white car. Many of the details of that time have come out under regression therapy, but I have always remembered pulling up to the front gates of the place. The next chain of events is as follows. The man in the front passenger seat turned around to me in the back and said, "They keep nuclear weapons here." I later discovered this was actually a front to keep the base secret so children could be trafficked in and out of the facility. Nuclear weapons may have been kept here, as well, but the primary reason of the Greenham Common base was to channel children underground to various facilities around the country. We drove though the base into an underground tunnel. There was a 2-lane road in this large tunnel, and we drove down it until we came to a flat underground car park with an army truck parked on the left-hand side. There were 2 booths here, with security guards sitting in each one. The tunnel went further on past the 2 booths. On my right-hand side, I could see a group of approximately 15 children standing by a door. All the children had blankets wrapped around their shoulders, and there were men in military uniforms and suits standing to the left of the children. They were not saying anything and just appeared to be standing there waiting. I was taken out of the car, handed a blanket, the tunnel was cold, and huddled together with the other children by the man in the passenger seat who was dressed in civilian clothing. The group consisted of mostly boys, some girls were in the group, as well. Most of us appeared to be roughly the same age, but some looked slightly older and taller. We were then ushered through the door on our right by one of the men in suits and walked down a couple of hallways to a room, which was a classroom type setting. The room contained chairs with desks in front, and we were all told to find a desk and sit down. The man stood at the front of the room, and we all waited for what seemed like a couple of minutes before a woman came into the room. She was pushing a trolley and wheeled it around next to our desks. She then handed each of us a type of puzzle, which we had to put geometrical shapes together. The woman was middle-aged with dark hair, pretty, and wearing an office-type dark skirt and white shirt. When we all had our puzzles, she stood at the front of the room and told us we had 3 minutes to put them together. She said go, and started a stopwatch. I cannot remember how well I did, but she instructed us to stop when the time was up and then came around with a clipboard marking our results down. After this, things turned very nasty. A group of men rushed in suddenly through the door on the right, which the woman used to enter. They dragged us out of our seats roughly. We were terrified, screaming, and struggling. Then we were carried roughly and some of us dragged out of this door and into the outside hallway. The woman was shouting something in a loud aggressive manner, which seemed to be directed at us. Still screaming and terrified, we were then strapped onto gurneys and wheeled down a couple of corridors into a medical-type setting and injected with drugs by doctors in lab coats. We were then wheeled down more corridors into a large, darker room with many large cages that housed large dogs and what appeared to be large wolves. I also remember hearing the sound of large cats, tigers or lions, and other animals deeper into the room, but I could not see that far into the darkness. The men who had dragged us out of the classroom were standing there with the woman, and she ordered them to unstrap us from the gurneys. This they did, and we all stood together huddled for protection. By this time, the drugs had kicked in, and we were in a state of chemical-induced calmness and compliance. The woman told us we were going to play a game to choose one. I also remember her saying something about the first chosen one, which now smacks to me of Masonic terminology. Add to the fact of female goddess energy being worshipped in Masonry, and many of the rites being controlled by a female mother goddess figure, I believe what happened next was a Masonic/satanic ritual. The woman seemed to occupy the mother goddess role, as she then proceeded to hang a bunch of colored ribbons onto the wall on her left side and told us to pick one ribbon each. This we did and then stood back together again. She asked, "Who has dark purple?" and everyone looked down. The room was lit up with a kind of fluorescent or infrared light, and our ribbons glowed with a psychedelic aura. A small girl to the left of our group said, "I have," and the woman nodded to one of the men who then grabbed the little girl and roughly carried her towards a cage on our left. She was struggling and crying, and as we all whimpered in terror, he opened the door and threw her in with a large snarling dog that had been barking and going crazy since the man picked the little girl up. It appeared to be an Alsatian-type dog or wolf but was much bigger. This animal picked the little girl up in its jaws like rag doll and started to shake her. It is difficult for me to remember much after this, and I'm not sure I want to. I even feel guilty about witnessing this event and even writing about it. Another survivor of similar projects told me this is very common and is called survivor's guilt. 1984 to 8 years old. Taken by father from Brighton, when visiting him on holiday, to the Burnham Beaches Omega location in a private section of woodlands on government land. Subjected to snake shamanism rituals here. Again, most, if not all, procedures in Project Mannequin are filmed in the name of science. Father also programmed at the Omega location as a child and adult. He was regularly taken here as a child by his father. Details of programming session are as follows. We were staying in an expensive hotel, and my father went out to make a phone call. He returned to the room and told me we were going for a drive. I questioned him about the trip, and he said, "I can't tell you." We drove to Burnham Beaches not saying a word most the trip. It was just getting dark as we arrived. We parked and were met by another man who talked to my father. I was led away by this man. We went into the woods, and I saw people gathered there with robes and hoods. Some of them were holding some kind of lit staffs, which illuminated the darkness. They formed a circle around me and started to chant in a strange language, which looking back on it now, sounded Hebrew or Aramaic. Like in 1981, English terms, such as chosen one, were also included in the chanting. A woman in a robe approached me. This may be the same woman from 1981, holding a small, multicolored snake. She pulled the sleeve up on my arm and pushed the top of the snake's head to agitate it. It hissed, and she directed its head to my arm, which it then bit. The poison seemed to kick in quite quickly, and I went into an altered state and got very ill. After a certain amount time, I recovered, and some of the people who were wearing robes were now naked. The woman brought another snake to me, this one a slightly different color but still small, and I was bitten again. I got very ill again, and this time I almost died. I was injected with a drug to revive me, and I recovered. I was then taken off to the left where a hole had been dug with a coffin next to it. The coffin was opened, and I saw it full of large snakes. I was in a very weak state and was lifted up and put in the coffin. I was then buried alive. It seemed as if I was buried for hours. There was no escape for me in the coffin, so I dissociated and went somewhere else in my mind. The larger snakes in the coffin seemed to be non-poisonous. 1986 to 10 years old. My mother and I moved to Reading with my stepfather. I was taken by two men while playing in the local woods at the end of Recreation Road, where we lived, and transported to the Al/499. As an adult, the little girl who lived opposite me got in contact with me out of the blue. She told me she had large memory gaps and remembered seeing TR-3/Firefly type Special Forces aircraft landing in the local woods when we were children. I was later contacted by NSA operative Silas and supplied my ProjectMannequin file regarding this training session. Other contacts whom I trust in the intelligence community confirm this file as authentic. TS/R/CLAVIUSTS. Subject, X4566, 2, CASJ. Assessment for cover tasking. 1. Unstable implant, series Tetra, has made X4566, 2 unsuitable for liquidation COV ops. 2. Recommend X4566, 2 be retained for obsolete and released into general pop. For Fallowright double-blind testing. COMDCLAVIUS. October 4, 1988. Details of programming session as follows. A training area was set up in one of the large rooms in the Al/499, and a small audience came in and took their seats. A very famous politician, who I will not name at this time, was in attendance. I was to participate in a bare-knuckled fight with another of the older boys from the 2nd unit. Commander Clavius was my handler at this time. He was a dark-haired man with a thin to medium build and approximately 5'11" tall. Sometimes he wore suit pants, a white shirt and tie, and other times he wore a dark Special Forces all-in-one type jumpsuit that I have seen many people wear over the years. He had an American accent and bad breath. When the fight began, I hit the other boy with a right cross and knocked him onto the floor, then stomped on his head. At this point, the fight was stopped, and I was greatly praised by Commander Clavius. After this, a kitten was brought in as my reward, and then events turned savage again. The handlers always went from being extremely kind to sadistic in order to confuse you. I was handed a knife and told to stab the kitten to death. I refused, and the commander screamed in my face and started slapping me. I still refused, and the beating became harder. I started to dissociate and went into a kind of stupor. Another man, with an American accent, in the audience yelled, "Kill it yourself," to the commander, to which he replied, "Yes sir." He then killed the kitten himself. I dissociated deeper, and my trance became deeper. Because I failed this test, I was deemed unsuitable for physical assassinations and my training started to go down the remote viewing and mastery of subtle energy route. However, the physical martial arts training continued, and by 16 years old, they decided to try me on my first hit in Brighton, but we're getting ahead of the timeline. Session culminates in second Osiris genetic engineering procedure. 1989 to 13 years old. I started secondary school. My mother insisted I attend Deanfield School in Reading, which was much farther away from my home than from the other schools I could have attended. I later discovered that Deanfield was connected to ProjectMannequin in more ways than one. Here I was the target of nearly every bully in the school. These boys were older, bigger, and stronger than me. I believed I was helpless against them. One afternoon, I was attacked on the field by two older boys who then proceeded to break my arm and some of the bones in my face. I was lying on the ground with my arm broken, and they stomped on my face. My mother was called, and she took me to hospital. I remember feeling no pain on the way to hospital. My arm was mangled, and metal plates were put in. I spent weeks in hospital recovering. When I came out of hospital, I discovered child pornography tapes in my stepfather's bedroom and watched them. These included children being raped in Masonic lodges by men dressed up in Egyptian-type robes. It also included homosexual orgies in these lodges, where the men were positioned in triangle patterns on the floor. My stepfather was abusing me. The beatings by the older boys continued at school and in my local area after school. I believed there was no escape for me and dissociated further in my mind. 1989 to 13 years old. I attended a local fair in Reading Town Center with a group of friends. I smoked my first joint before we entered. I saw the older boys who had been bullying me, and they saw me. They followed me to the far end of the fair, and two of them dragged me around the back of the toilets, pulled my coat over my head, and gave me a beating. When this was finished, my coat was stuck over my face tightly and was suffocating me. I couldn't pull it off. A boy watching came out of the crowd and ripped it off me. I stood up and saw one of the boys who had just beaten me up, standing with his group of friends. He was around 17 years old, and I was terrified of him. I suddenly felt an energy of courage and strength enter me. I ran over to him and knocked him out with one punch. All his friends were shocked and stepped back. This gave myself, and the friend I was with, time to get out of the fair. We walked across the bridge and looked back to see the gang of approximately 15 youngsters running after us and over 50 youngsters running after them to watch the action. My friend yelled "Run," and we sprinted off. If we could make it past the bridge and into the pub at the end of the street, we would be safe. Just as I thought this, a black boy raced ahead of the crowd and started to catch up with us. His speed was incredible. I believed if I got caught, I would die. He grabbed hold of me and held me until the others caught up with us. We were caught under the dark bridge just before the pub. They left my friend alone, but I was sat upon by the smaller group, while the large crowd gathered around to watch. A long, drawn-out beating commenced, while my friend screamed for them to stop. At one point, I felt if I were hit in the face again, I would die. At this point, my consciousness left my body. I then saw the scene from above looking down on my own body, but my body was still fighting. A large Jamaican lad came toward me to finish me off, and I hit him with a right cross that knocked him on his back. I then covered up, as ferocious blows started to rain in again from the others. I laid on the floor semi-conscious, and my shoes and jacket were taken. A couple of spectators from the larger crowd now ran in and kicked me in the head. Eventually, everyone headed off, and my friend bravely followed to try and get my shoes and jacket back. The lad, whom I knocked out at the fair, came back to attack me again while I was lying on the floor. My friend ran back and screamed, "He's had enough." He looked at me on the floor, and then walked off. As I lay on the road, cars were driving around me, and no one stopped to help me. My friend came over and took me to the pub. We rang my mother to come and take me to the hospital. When my mother and stepfather picked me up and take me to the hospital, I could remember ringing my mother, and just after this, I forgot my own name. My face and head were horribly swollen, and the doctor said I was lucky to be alive, and whoever did this were animals. I stayed in the hospital for a few days of observation. My family unit was fully dead by this time, and compartmentalizing trauma came very easily now. I never saw my friend again after this. 1990 to 14 years old. My mother decided enough is enough and moved me down to St. Ives, Cornwall with my father, who had just been released from prison for drug trafficking. I went through my third Osiris genetic engineering procedure just after this on my 15th birthday, and the handlers of Mannequin now stepped up training and ops to the next level. I later discovered that my NSA handlers needed to have me in a less built-up rural area, as the number of my vehicle pick UPS had increased. Within 1 week, I was set about by the local gang on the seafront even though I had done nothing. I now carried weapons most of the time, as I had sworn to not be hurt anymore, so I proceeded to batter them with nunchucks. No one messed with me after that. I got home and broke down in tears. Why does everyone hate me? I met a local boy who was also programmed, I found out later, and we ordered replica guns from a magazine. We then decided to rob the local Spar supermarket with masks on. On the way to the shop, my friend got scared and changed his mind. I said to him, "There's nothing to it, but to do it," and ran into the shop, and he ran in behind me. I stuck my replica Beretta in the face of the girl behind the till and demanded the money. My friend made a few of the people, who were standing around, go to the back of the shop as he held them at gunpoint. The girl went pale and became unresponsive as I demanded the money. I jumped over the counter and tried to open the till myself. I don't know what button to press, so I began to push them randomly. An alarm went off on the till, and people in the back of the shop began to shout. I panicked and actually shouted my friend's real name, "Let's go." We ran out of the shop and ran home. We told my father what we'd done, and he seemed proud of me for it. Approximately half an hour later, there was an armed response on the street outside the flat. My father hid the replica guns at the back of the flat for us. We waited for the door to be kicked in, and it never came. The unit was there for the young lad who lived next door, as he had been in trouble with air guns in the past and was a prime suspect for the armed robbery in our small community. The next day, the robbery was on the local news, and my father seemed even more proud of me. The police ended up catching up with us a couple of weeks later, as I basically told my girlfriend what I had done trying to impress her. She ended up telling her father, who was a policeman. My friend and I ended up in Truro Crown Court. My solicitor told my mother that I could face years in prison. We ended up being sentenced to 28 days. I had never seen pain on my mother's face like just before and when we were sentenced. She twisted her face up into inhuman shapes and expressions when I looked at her from the dock. I had seen her do this before, when she was angry, but never like this. The other boy's mother did not do this. I was transferred to Feltham Young Offenders Institute, and there were boys there who were serving years for armed robbery with a knife. I was accused of being a police informant by the other boys for having such a low sentence. Bullying was rife here, but strangely enough, I was left alone as I stood up to the top dog on the first day. He beat another boy with a sock containing toiletries the moment I got on the wing and then threw the weapon on my bed in my cell. I took the weapon and walked straight up to him, looked him in the eye, grabbed his hand, and placed it in his hand. I said to him, "I don't want to be involved in this." 3 boys in my wing attempted suicide during the short time I was there. There were rumors of sexual abuse taking place in one of the shared cells, and this cell was shut down. At night, I heard guards coming up the metal stairs, doors being opened, and boys taken somewhere and returned later. When I came out of prison, no one wanted to mess with me. I had now acquired degenerate thinking. I thought guns, weapons, and violence were the way to happiness, as people would fear me and not hurt me anymore. 1992 to 16 years old. I had not long been out of prison, as the criminal case took about a year to go to court. I was on license and signed a document saying I was prohibited by law to have anything to do with all firearms for a certain amount of time. I was back in St. Ives, and my mother went away for a few days. She left my auntie in charge of me. I received a phone call and told her I was going to Brighton, and there was nothing she could do about it. I got my first tattoo, which resembles an evil alien face, on my right shoulder and jumped on the train to Brighton. When I got off, John, one of the male members of my unit, was waiting for me. I can't recall exactly what was said, but he handed me a bag with a loaded 9mm Smith & Wesson in it. The gist of the conversation was basically this: you know your target, here's the gun, go and get him. I walked down to the seafront and waited outside a bar. There was man sitting outside on a table drinking a pint of beer. He had short, sandy-colored hair, a short muscular build, and was wearing a short-sleeved shirt. I was fixated upon him. I took the gun out of the bag, slipped off the safety, and walked up to him. I then emptied most of the clip into his head and chest and saved a couple of bullets in case anyone tried to stop me as I ran off. When I started to shoot, everything went quiet in my mind. I was later told by a man involved in the intelligence community that the hit was carried out for the famous politician I saw in the AL/499 when I was 10 years old. I ran off after I killed the man, and the next thing I remember was sitting on a beach over half a mile away. I was coming down from a huge rush of adrenaline, and I felt very pleased with myself, as if my superiors were going to be very happy. Maybe they wouldn't hurt me anymore, I thought. I took off my clothes and went for a swim in my boxer shorts. After this, I walked further along the seafront, and Jenny, the one female member of my unit, met me, took the bag off me, and proceeded to give me various post-hypnotic commands. I forgot what I had just done and returned home on the train. After this, I attended a party at my auntie's house in Brighton, and a girl told me about a shooting on the seafront. When she told me this, I didn't even remember doing it. This timeline will be continued in the next chapter, as it emotionally exhausting writing this. Chapter 6, The Sublime View. When I'm an old man, I don't want to look back upon my life and remember that I was some kind of prophet of doom who brought fear into the lives of millions of people. My work has now reached millions, and I need to be careful. My message is ultimately one of love and peace, which is the Pleiadian paradigm. A win-win situation where every man, woman, and child on this planet's benefits. The corrupt Illuminati paradigm wishes to see the destruction of the so-called Goyim, all the people on earth who are not new Israelites. When our unit was involved in RV ops in London in the 90s, we were told things like, when it all goes down, people like you will run the planet for us. Many times, the elite were called underground to the CLC, one facility under Parliament when there were threats of a nuclear attack on the UK. Barry King was paired up with a certain female in this facility in the past in this exact situation. It was a COG, continuity of government, type operation with the Illuminati wanting to repopulate the earth with offspring of the most gifted, to rise from the ashes like the phoenix. Fortunately, this never happened. Emmanuel's message was that all people, Jew and Gentile, could see the new Jerusalem of peace and prosperity on earth. This is what the future holds, and the Pleiadians are not going to see this planet get flushed down the pen. I'm honored and grateful to be able to carry this message. What gives me the right to speak for the Pleiadians? The simple answer is that I've been in direct contact with them since I was child. Part of my role in Project Mannequin was to make telepathic contact with the large Pleiadian motherships in the outer atmosphere and then pass the messages on to Commander Clavius and other people. This was all done while I was in the trip seat. I've had that much contact with them over the years that a whole book could be written on this subject alone. Some of the messages in Mannequin had to do with the fact that the Pleiadians would not stand for the abuse occurring in these military facilities, and Aldebaran Federation forces would be taking direct military action against them. This is not a chapter about exopolitics, but the MI6 forces have control over something known as the Tablets of Destiny, which is basically a network of large exotic crystal-based computers. These are linked in a geometrical grid pattern around the world and can trigger large-scale disasters such as tidal waves, hurricanes, and earthquakes. Anyone who has investigated the subject would be familiar with the HAARP scalar weather warfare system based in Alaska. This is part of the TOD supercomputer. Ultimately, mankind is being held hostage by the system. People often ask, why don't the Pleiadians come in and rescue us and all the children being abused in underground bases, if all the ships are positioned around the planet? The answer is because of the Tablets of Destiny. Yes, the large Pleiadian craft are here. Anyone who attended the Probe International Conference in the past saw the proof. My colleague Duncan presented the many-colored photographs of these ships, some over 5 miles long, to hundreds of stunned people in attendance. You could hear the gasps from the audience as people's breath was taken away. These photographs were taken by another friend of mine, known on the internet as Simon Anderson and John Leonard Walson, using advanced photography equipment that takes pictures of objects in the outer atmosphere. JLW has filmed so many ships that I cannot cover them all here. His work has been included in the huge Renzi.com website and a small amount of footage can be seen here. My most recent Pleiadian contacts brought word of direct military action by Aldebaran Federation forces against certain strategic locations in Britain, America, and Australia. These attacks and liberations were utilized using Excalibur-type technology. This is sonic, ground-penetrating weaponry that attacks deep underground but leaves the surface unharmed. This message was given to me on the night of August 25 by several small scout craft positioned overhead in a certain location in Scotland where I am now based. The attacks would take place between the 25th and August 30th, I was told. A couple of days later, I was told by Lincoln that he'd heard of a huge explosion and fire in the underground facility at Montauk, where the Phoenix Mind Control project is being run. He also informed me that the maglev underground tube shuttle system had been shut down between the bases in New Mexico. All the terminals had been closed and this went on for an unusually long time. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on the warlike aspect of the Pleiadians. I want to focus on the joy and ecstasy that comes with having a heart link with them, especially the female aspect of their civilization. They are a goddess-based society, which venerates females and family. The feeling of the energy is similar to being in love. Children with Pleiadian genetics are highly sought after in Mannequin and are known under such codenames as Platinum Blues and Digital Children. These are the most joyful and angelic children whose physic abilities come from the ability to feel love and the feelings of another being. The people used in the project are like the phoenix. They are individuals of such passion and fire that their souls are often too powerful for their bodies. It often takes to their 30th birthday to learn how to slow down and take care and control over their physical bodies. Basically, during my telepathic contacts with them, I have written down what they told me. I have a whole box full of this information in a safe location. An individual approached me and offered to purchase them, but we could not agree on the right price. I am glad now I did not sell them. Much of the information is almost identical word for word as such Pleiadian channeled books as Awakening Your Divine Kansas and the Pleiadian Light Workbook by Amora Chwanyan and the Pleiadian Light Body DNA Activation Program by Gil Patterson. I had not read these books when I received the precipitation transmissions from the Pleiadians. They teach you how to ascend your consciousness into higher dimensions, they take a person higher. The energy is sexual as psi and sexual is one in the same. Gil Patterson calls the human light workers on earth sacred sexual master beings of light. As the ecstasy takes you, an individual is able to remote view and do other things. As I rise out of my body, I see the house, then the town, then the country in my sublime view. I then go so high I hold the whole planet in my palm, so to speak. I am then able to project my consciousness almost anywhere in the world and see what is going on. By reading this, part of my spirit is now with you. I've already gone public with the exact scientific method I use to RV on the Godlike Productions forum, so I won't include it here. According to various NSA scientists who have briefed me, over 1,000 man-hours have been put into exploring the limits of how far a remote viewer can see. They talk about 7 superdomains, which basically point toward the human having the mind of God when developed and can see across the universe. There is a limit, and the NSA scientists call this the T-boundary or through boundary. The Knights. The intelligence community consists of modern-day Knights, and the people who work with me are some of the individuals who are still human and haven't been taken over. I will explain what I mean by this statement. The knightly Masonic orders were originally set up to directly combat dangerous extraterrestrial life forms, but nowadays, many of the orders have been taken over by the same beings who were their sworn enemies. This makes perfect sense, as one of the most effective military strategies is to infiltrate and subvert your enemy. Amongst the most dangerous reptilians on Earth now is the Chimera, or shapeshifter, who walks amongst us and appears as a man. More and more chimeras are presently embedded in the human population. Many of the underground bases in the UK and US have DNA scanners located at the topside exits that are guarded by armed personnel. These alarms are triggered on these scanners if an alien or enhanced clone in human form attempts to leave the facility without permission. Do not be fooled into thinking the human military have this situation under control. However, they attempt to do their best. All other known human exits without DNA scanners are monitored 24/7 from satellite. One of the major problems the Chimera cause is when they take the human form of a world leader, which they often do. I have seen the famous politician I mentioned in Chapter 5 more than once in various underground facilities around the UK. More than once, I knew it was not the original man but a reptilian that had taken on his form. This individual also has several clones, as well. He carries a beautiful 9mm Smith & Wesson, a favorite gun of the NSA. This pistol has a pearl handle grip with a symbol of a dragon on it. High-ranking members of the intelligence community will know who I'm talking about. I'll leave it at that for the time being. As I said, the chimeras look like men but are not men. It is not for humans to understand the mind of malevolent Xenos. This is totally alien and beyond our comprehension. Their centers of operation are located deep in the earth under the subsurface military bases and also on their huge spacecraft. RV scans reveal cave-like interiors inside these places, which resemble huge insect colonies, with some Xenos over 18 feet tall. Many of their spacecraft are organic rock-like structures. The inherent vileness of these places and beings is physically transmitted and felt when around them. These centers of operations often have hundreds of thousands of human men, women, and children in cryogenic stasis pods to be used as food. Whether these are clones or real humans, I do not know. However, classified DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, increasingly large amounts of children going missing in the UK and US X-13 also informed of the disturbing disclosure that 1 million cryogenically frozen children had been given by the Greys to the Draco Prime ship behind the Hale-Bopp comet as tribute. These beings are anathema to all our values. As we love, so they hate. As we are strengthened and fed by peace, they are strengthened and fed by fear. They are actually a dying race who has progressed too far down the road of technology without balancing their emotional developing. They have turned into organic machines because of this. I've been warned I could be killed even more quickly for disclosing the next piece of information, as it's so close to home. However, with all the secrecy falling apart, it hardly matters now. The cat is well and truly out of the bag. This concerns the recent spate of suicides of young people in the town of Bridgend in Wales. 23 individuals have killed themselves in 20 months here. 7 deaths were linked as a possible cluster. The population is only 32,000 here. Dale Kroll, 18, hanged himself in a derelict warehouse on January 5, 2007. His friend, David Dillings, 19, hanged himself on February 18. Thomas Davies, 20, who knew both of them, hanged himself in a park a week later. Zachary Barnes, 17, who hanged himself on August 11, is also believed to have known the other victims. In December, Liam Clark, a friend of Kroll, was found hanged in a park. Gareth Morgan, 27, who knew Clark, died on January 5 this year. Natasha Randall, 17, posted a tribute message to Clark on her Bebo page 2 days before she hanged herself on January 17. On February 13, Kelly Stevenson was found hanged a few hours after her cousin Nathaniel Pritchard, 15, was declared dead following a suspected suicide. The two cousins were said to be very close, and on one of Ms. Stevenson's Bebo pages, there were tributes to Clark, Randall and Barnes. Jenna Perry, 16, found hanged on the morning of February 19, was thought to be a close friend of at least one other victim. So what is going on here really? I was directly briefed by British intelligence that in 5 of the news reports, there were members of MI6 and Group 5 to 8 special forces working on telephone poles and in telephone boxes in the background while cameras were interviewing newscasters. These operatives were searching an item, which has recently gone missing from the underground genetics facility below Brecon Beacons in Wales, known as Trapdoor. This so-called item is a chimera that has gone AWOL. It is referred to as a feeder, as being near to it reveals such feelings as intense suicidal tendencies and depression. The reason being is that it telepathically feeds on the taste of fear. The intel operatives in the news background are a message to the community saying, "We're attempting to get the situation under control and track this thing down." The reality of the situation is that the chimera came into the town and engaged these young people in conversation. It then telepathically hypnotized them with various subliminal suggestions. After this, it went back to the place it was staying, possibly a B&B, and performed a type of remote viewing to the location where the individual was in the process of committing suicide and fed off the energies being released here. Modern scientific investigations are now reporting that some reptile species on Earth have a type of orgasm when they die, as huge amounts of endorphins are released. Recently, there have been reports of the famous lizard man of South Carolina. One media report is as follows. Sighting of the lizard man of Scape or Swamp, also known as the lizard man of Lee County, was a major media event. First with one sighting and then others, it was said to be a humanoid cryptid, perhaps a merbeing, inhabiting areas of swampland in and around Lee County, South Carolina. The lizard man was described at the time as being quite tall, bipedal, and having what appeared to be scaly skin and glowing red eyes. In the popular media rendering, it was said to have 3 toes on each foot and 3 fingers on each hand that end in long black claw-like nails. The first reported sighting of the Scape or creature occurred on June 29, 1988, but was soon followed by others, including information that was revealed about an earlier sighting in 1987. Now, almost exactly 20 years after the initial media flap of the Scape or event, is the lizard man back. Just recently, I received word from Lincoln that a reptilian had breached one of the above-ground exits at the Oak Ridge NSA facility. He informed me of a phone call he received the night of the recent reports of the lizard man. I won't detail the case, as it was included in the mainstream media of America and can be read on the internet. The phone call was from Oak Ridge and relayed the message that the place was on red alert after a reptilian had breached the area and was being hunted by Delta Special Forces units. Apparently, one of the treaties had fallen through with the Draco and US government, and this was a psychological warfare tactic by the Draco, basically saying, "If you don't do what we say, we'll come onto the surface and cause terror." This is exactly what this thing did when it attacked a car in the area and scratched the front with its claws. See picture below. Photo 1, car scratched by reptilian ET. Also see photo 2 of Oak Ridge facility supplied by Lincoln. Photo 2 Oak Ridge facility where Looking Glass device is based. Photo 3 shows the ROSE, Remote Operational Weapons System, hardware at Oak Ridge. This is a heat-seeking mechanized rifle system that automatically locks onto anything in its sensor range. It fires upon the command of Guard Underground, photo supplied by Lincoln. Photo 3 ROSE, Remote Operational Weapons System. Photo 4 shows one of the separator pumps at the Dulce Genetics facility. Taken from level 5, this is for working with blood plasma, photo supplied by Lincoln. Photo 4, separator pumps at the Dulce Genetics facility. Photo 5 shows Barry King and me together at my flat in St. Ives. Photo 5 Barry King, L, and Michael Prince, James Casbolt, R. Photo 6 shows one of Lincoln's security badges. He has to wear 4 of them at all times. All 4 are for different purposes. One is his permanent badge, one is daily, one is door scanner/retina scan badge, and the other is for lower level access. All badges, except daily badges, remain in base at all times. They do not leave with anyone. They are turned in with coveralls when you leave. This is Lincoln's daily badge. The strip next to his employee number is turning pink/reddish in color. This strip turns pink if you don't scan it with an ultraviolet badge scanner. Basically, the badge goes bad to prevent forgery. Photo 6 Lincoln's security badge. Photo 7 shows a reptilian that has been killed and beheaded in the jungle of South America by local shamans. Photo 7 Head of dead reptilian ET. Chapter 7, Convergence of the Star Children. In August 2006, I made the following prediction on the Edge AM radio broadcast. I stated we are close to a worldwide stock market collapse followed by an Arab-backed Russian military invasion of the US and UK. The global stock market collapse has now occurred, and it is time to ask yourself this question: why are masses of Russian and Polish immigrants being let into the UK? If a Russian invasion were being planned, would there be less resistance if the population were mixed together? We were told years ago that the UK and US would become training grounds for Russian special forces, such as Spetsnaz, Russian special purpose regiments, working together with private security firms such as Wackenhut. I've nothing against the Russian KGB/FSB, as I'm friends with ex-KGB agents such as John Simons. Most of these guys are just puppets because again we have a group of 33rd degree and above Masons working together and controlling the Russian, American, and British governments. These people are now playing out a four horsemen of the apocalypse scenario. This will cause religious uproar amongst Christian, Muslim, etc. fundamentalists. This is all planned to do just that, of course. The 4 stages, or horsemen, of the New World Order are as follows, and it all begins with the global stock market collapse. 1. Worldwide stock market breakdown, first major attack on the world's population. 2. Arab-backed Russian invasion of US and UK, World War III. 3. Large-scale biowarfare attack on world's population, return of the plague situation. 4. Topped off by a false flag alien invasion with Illuminati and ETS working together, possibly staged over 2012 Olympic Games in London while eyes of the world focused on the event. On September 8, I received this email from X3, 33rd degree of Zion/Illuminati member. Dear James, the Committee of the Majority, Magic, have elected out of the Illuminati, top 300, 33rd degree Masons. Now putting final plans in place for fake Armageddon scenario. Watch Iran and Pakistan. Plan is for theater of war to break out in the Middle East, i.e. Armageddon. Meanwhile Lord Jacob Rothschild and his lodge, through the BIS are attacking the US financial system. The plan as I understand it is a simultaneous financial attack, then a war with Russia through Iran and Israel, then a bird avian virus attack throughout the USA. The microchips of course are in the inoculants manufactured in Switzerland by Rockefeller's company. If the light workers turn up, authors note, Pleiadians, which is expected, Project Bluebeam will be initiated, fake ET invasion. Yours in service. On the September 24th, I received this email from Lincoln confirming above intel. James. How are you? I am exhausted. I just came back from a 4-day trip to Poland. Lots of crazy stuff going on there. They had a crash there 2 weeks ago. I was part of the research team that had to visit for intel/archive purposes. Seems the technology gets better and better because we recorded several new updated and brand new items that will be going for back engineering. Should be interesting. Be aware that this American economic problem is all planned out. Poland is key right now. Keep an eye on Pakistan. Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 might be interesting. He saw through looking glass as well, you know. Talk to you soon. Irish. While staying in Scotland recently, I received the following information from the people I stayed with who are in the network. A certain individual there was told to ring a special number and received the following recorded message. It basically stated that in the event of an unprecedented national emergency in the UK, it would be very unwise to flee from a major city, such as London, and head towards rural areas, such as Devon and Cornwall. The reason being that plans are being formulated by special forces to herd masses of people into these areas during a time of panic, the reason being to trap the masses in these areas by sealing off the Tamar Bridge for SF sweep-up operations. The intelligence operative who recorded this message says the sweep-up operation will be the rounding up of huge numbers of civilians in martial law. British troops will refuse to carry out these orders, but mind-controlled Spetsnaz and Wackenhut forces will not. If this happens, most of the British troops will be overseas, as the puppet masters will strategically place their military chess pieces in the correct locations. The Draco and Syrian Anunnaki pull the ultimate strings here, and they hope to sit back and see us reduce our numbers drastically for a more compliant planetary takeover when their military forces return en masse in 2012. Looking for help. The following emails are from individuals involved in the areas mentioned in Agent Buried Alive. Bear in mind that I receive literally hundreds of these types of communications from all over the world, from ex-special forces, ex-government people, scientists, etc. I talk to many over the phone and meet many face to face. Most of them are just decent, honest people looking for answers. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I try and help them as much as I can. The best form of help seems to come from providing them proof of these issues. Many of them doubt their own sanity after what they have experienced. I received the following email on August 17, 2008. Mr. Casbolt. I am writing you hoping that you might understand what has happened to me. I was told by a friend about your site, so I dropped by and as very intrigued, but then troubled. I never thought that my government, US, would be involved in the things you speak of. But the more time that goes by, I have learned better. I guess I should start at the beginning. In August 1984 I enlisted in the US Air Force as a security specialist. They put me in delayed entry, but during this wait I was indoctrinated in military drill and command, procedures, and marksmanship. I had signed on for 6 years, so I was told I would be given the rank of E3 immediately after graduation. But once I arrived at Lackland AFB, things got strange. I was singled out the first day for testing. I was given blood tests, vision test, and a hearing test. During the hearing test, for what I thought took only 15 minutes, when I checked the time when it was over 3 hours had passed. The next day I had blood in both eyes and started vomiting uncontrollably. Nobody else was subjected to these tests. We had all been tested before we arrived. So why was I tested again? When I went to the medical center I was given a pill bottle which contained belladonna alkaloid. This was to help with my symptoms, they say. Within the month I was discharged for stress. When I got home I began a series of security jobs for Pinkerton and Wackenhut that I acquired through the State Job Service Administration. I was approached by a supervisor asking me to enroll in a school called Executive Security International in Aspen, Colorado. That is when my headaches began and I started having memory lapses. I trained as a bodyguard/security specialist there, where I was told by instructor Jack McGeorge that to be a good bodyguard, you need to be a better assassin. I laughed this off, and went on about my studies. Since then I have had memory loss, loss of time, and unable to explain where I have been for periods of time. This cost me my first marriage, but so far my second marriage is holding up. About 10 years ago I ended up with a back injury I could not explain. I just woke and it was there. I often awake with unexplained injuries. Buckshot in my legs being the most drastic. I have also been treated for depression and post-traumatic stress. I asked the doctor why I have PTSS. He says that I am suppressing something traumatic. I think he is full of shit. Have any ideas what is going on? What can I do? Am I just crazy? SFC. On September 10th, I received this email from journalist Ken Adachi over at the educateourself.org website. Hi James. I posted your chapters. The story of James Casbolt and Project Mannequin, September 8, 2008, http://educate-yoursellf.org/mc/Casbolt intro 08 September 08.html. I'll get your audio and post that on my site as well. I downloaded your 4 videos posted at YouTube from October 2007. Very well done. I'll post them as well. Tell me the name of the conference that you were speaking at. I'm also sending you this email I received from a man in London. It seems he was programmed as a child to remote view. He mentions Greenham Common. Notice the synchronicity. I received his email on September 5th, but I only posted your chapters on September 8th. If you feel you could add something that might assist him, please send it to me and I'll forward it to him. Do you want me to publish your email address with your chapters? If so, which one? I'm interested in the Andy Pero contact. Let me know what you get. Best regards, Ken. 12-year-old covertly trained to remote view at special school in London. http://educate-yourself.org/lte/child remote viewers London 05 September 08.html. September 5th, 2008. 12-year-old covertly trained to remote view at special school in London, September 10, 2008. Subject, child remote viewers in southwest London. From, Martin I. Morris. Date, Friday, September 5, 2008. 2, Editor. Dear Sir. My partner recently directed me to your site in the hope it may help me. In the early 1980s, I lived in London. I was not very academic, more of a disobedient daydreamer. I don't know why this was. I came from a normal, stable family. Apart from suffering mild epilepsy, I was normal. As I wasn't doing well at school, I was sent to a centre in Clapham Old Town, London. Here things really started to go crazy for me. I suffered a lot of déjà vu, and while watching TV, or reading the papers, I could always see another take on what I was being told or reading. The school, as it was known, only had a handful of students attending, and did not follow the regular curriculum. It was very informal and loose. Once a week, we were taken on days out for field trips, but we never saw any fields. It was always in large, strange buildings, often in Greenwich, East London, the Thames Barrier and next to Hampton Court. Now my problem is my memories from these places are quite bizarre. And now I'm beginning to doubt them myself. These were the days before the PC and TV plasma screens etc., but I swear they had them there. I think we were being used to do things remotely on these screens. I could swear there was a large humming noise. Everything was made of metal, and cable like I've never seen, millions of thin cables. Is any of this possible? Here I met another kid my age, I was 12 at the time. His name was Tim. We got on well and spoke often. He told me we were in the school because of our teeth. He claimed that our teeth were implanted with something to control and follow us. Crazy, I thought at the time. Amongst other things he told me, were that we should never eat cheap meat. We were being sprayed with little creatures from aeroplanes and that a handful of companies would one day rule the world over. Bear in mind, we were 12 years old. I thought he was plain mad. He spoke of tiny machines that we could not see by eye, living on us and relaying information back to they, he used to say. Tim was always treated with kid gloves on these days out. There was always two little brown men, perfectly human, just incredibly small, helping him to do work. As I said, my memories are very strange, but I remember us being tested on lights and puzzles. I cannot remember what this testing was about, but it was not normal surely. Then I noticed something that was very, very frightening. 3 other kids and this Tim had fits, epileptic fits. No parents were called and no doctors, just a couple of Indian nurses who did not speak English, I think. It was then I realized that we all had something in common. This is the most confusing period of my life. What I'm about to say may make you dismiss my letter, but please don't. It's only the memories of a child, and may not make sense, but I think I've been underneath Greenham Common in an army camp, I'm sure I have. So sure, it freaks me to just think about it. After 2 years at this school, I was sent back to mainstream education. I went on to grow up, I'm now 41, and I keep thinking of the things I was told. A couple of years later, BSE bovine spongiform encephalitis tilde mad cow's disease equal cheap meat? Sprayed by planes equal chemtrails. Poison in the water to stop us breeding equal fluoride, estrogen, to name but a few I've noticed over the years. Now the part that really scares me is last year. I had traveled to India to have some cheap dental work done while on holiday. I needed a copy of my dental records and I nearly fainted when I read the first ever dental treatment I had was in 1978, a root canal filling in a 7-year-old child. Done by a NHS National Health Service traveling dentist who visited our remote school. Is this possible? My parents were always proud how I had such good teeth. This was never mentioned to me, ever. When something happens on the news, I seem to know so much about it and I wonder how. The new ID cards and chips are coming just like Tim said. The water is poisonous. God knows what's coming out those chemtrails. So please tell me what you think. To myself, I sound like a loony, but I know what I was told and what I've done. So it's not all lies. What can it be? You seem very well informed on such subjects. Can you point me in the right direction? It's very strange to sit here and see things unfolding and I'm thinking at the time, oh my God, I knew that. But how? It's only just coming out in the news. How could I have known? Yours sincerely. Hello. You were trained in remote viewing and remote influencing as part of a covert government mind control operation, likely Project Mannequin, a top-secret NSA program in Britain that was only recently exposed, 2007, by James Casbolt. There are many British children, surely thousands, but very likely tens of thousands, who have been subjected to this training, so you shouldn't feel you are facing this alone. You were subjected to mind control in order to keep the memories of your training and other experiences at the school hidden from your conscious mind. After a period of 20 to 30 years, however, fragmentary memories of the programming events begin to leak back into the conscious mind and the person starts having inexplicable flashback memories of weird and strange events, at least that's the way it happens to a lot of victims of mind control. In your case, you remembered your conversations with Tim from the start, so the things he forewarned you about are now becoming more apparent to you and it all seems less crazy. It's natural to doubt yourself since no one told you or asked you if you wanted to be part of this program. You were chosen as the result of an aptitude test that you likely received either before or after being sent to the school in Clapham Old Town, London. The fact that you said you were not very academic, but rather a disobedient daydreamer tells me that the right side of your brain is more developed than the left side. Therefore, you are more right-brained, or more intuitive, which means you have above-average psychic ability, and that's what the government was looking for, kids with psychic ability. You were trained to remote view and remote influence from a distance, so that ability still bleeds through into your conscious, everyday life. Because of your training, your subconscious mind instantly becomes aware of the events you are seeing on the TV news or might read about in the newspaper. That's why you are having the apparent déjà vu experiences. The info is bleeding through from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind. It's possible you were trained to be a sleeper and are not being actively used as a remote viewer. It's also possible that you are being covertly used, but you are unaware of it. The epilepsy, and the epileptic fits that you saw Tim and the others have, may somehow be part of this deal, but I have no idea what's going on in that regard. James Casbolt will likely know more of your situation than I, so I'll forward your email to him and perhaps he can add more to the story. You should not be frightened by this information, but rather embrace it and determine to undo this programming and discover what really happened to you. You have talent as a remote viewer and need to learn how to access that talent on your own and use it for the benefit of mankind, rather than serve the dark masters of the New World Order. Tim Raffat is in Brighton and has a great deal of expertise in this arena. He may be able to help you. http://www.remoteviewinglight.com/html/tim-raffat-remote-viewing.html right parenthesis. Tell me more if you care to expand on your story. The more you attempt to dig, the more memories will come to the surface. You should keep a spiral-bound notebook and write things down as they come to you. Regards. Ken. On the August 15th, I received the following email. Hi James. I believe I have something to share here. As of lately I've been researching all this covert mind control, and for myself have been trying to put my odd puzzle together. When I was a kid 4 to 5, I have a memory of my father taking me somewhere underground where a lot of other kids were doing puzzles, people in lab coats. He told me it was a company party for the Eaton Corporation in the Cleveland, Ohio area. But I remember all the kids on a spinning wheel and we were hanging onto the center, and it spun really fast and all the kids got thrown into brick walls. We were all badly hurt. I clearly remember this, yet over the years I have asked my father about this and he doesn't remember. My mother insisted he stop taking me to Masonic meetings for I was getting molested there, and one time I was hospitalized due to an injury to my fanny. My father seems fascinated researching his genealogy family tree, all relating to Scotland, Wales, Vanderbilts, and American Indians, and my mother is pure Irish, and he is always watching shows about the Nazis, and when he goes to the dentist he never allows painkillers. I remember one time his dentist told me it was rather odd how he endured the pain, for he was sure it should have caused great pain. Makes me wonder, as he was in the military as well. In Catholic school I always had to go into a mobile lab out in the parking lot where they made me do psychic testing. They constantly drilled me if I could remember extensive numbers in a series. I always remember walking into them but only have a few memories inside. When I went to public school in 6th grade, for some reason my class only had to wear headphones and told to listen to a particular radio station with Walkmans. In Quantico, VA, I recall several times wondering where 2 to 3 days went. And one time I remember naval intelligence in my room tearing the room apart. I asked, "What are you doing?" and they kept telling me to go back to sleep, although I didn't. Later my roommate was trying to fix the rattling vent and found bugs in the air vents. Only 200 people in Quantico went to Desert Storm. I was one of them. The camp was designed like the 3 rings of Atlantis. The commandant of the Marine Corps for some reason always invited me into the center and into his personal quarters to call my father. Why me, I thought. I remember on one occasion when they picked 12 of us to go out in the middle of the desert. That was the only time the Iraq tanks crossed the border, and it was exactly where we were. I remember them congratulating us, but I was unsure for what reason. Then I got transferred to GTMO, Cuba. My gunny had me meet 3 CIA members, and then I seemed to have lost 3 days. When I scuba dove there my friends' tanks would be empty and mine would still have 90% air in it. They all put their gauges on my tank to find it true. Then at discharge process my final medical stated I had hearing problems. Odd, I thought my hearing was tip-top. They medevaced me from GTMO to Norfolk, VA and put me in a sound booth with all these fast cyclic frequencies and lights flashing. Then they told me my hearing was fine and I could continue checking out of the Corps. Silent subliminal, I wonder. Then when I got out I checked into Ohio State U and this one guy kept following me around while I was looking for apartments, insisting to move into his house because we were both Marines. He worked at Wakenhut. He had like over 50 assault rifles and put them into my room. I told him chicks are going to think I'm crazy with all these guns, so he threw a sheet over them. Then he moved to Chicago. Then instantly some other Marine gets a job where I work and begs to move in and places all these assault guns in my room. On one occasion I had this girl over and my handler, let's say, asked her to ride on the back of his CBR 900. They got a 1/4 mile down the road. They said the back tire was thrown to the left and they came back all banged up. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Don't ever do that again." I looked back and said, "Touché." On one occasion I ripped his leg out of socket and twisted it up real bad. I guarantee to this day every step he remembers me. One day he yelled at me and then got in his Jeep and drove off. Then it lost control and flipped over and was totaled. He feared me, although he stuck around and insisted we create a security company called Shadow. Kind of dark, I thought, with a CIA agent who bragged about drug running in Chicago, that guarded an underground tunnel network in Columbus, Ohio near Trobwa Road, Marble Cliffs Aggregate Quarry, which was partially federal land. It was purchased by a company in Australia who brought in their own security company. On one occasion I overheard that the abandoned building west of the Columbus courthouse has a CIA center underneath. I just always thought weird. But a year later I had an experience in a lab room where they were trying to give me a shot in a lab. I kicked the nurse away, threw 2 guards down and ran out of this same abandoned building. All this security chased me. I hopped to the top of this huge fence, ran out to a public parking lot, saw a car alarm light blinking, so I punched out the window to create a disturbance for my escape. Now my Marine roommate moves away and changes his name, becomes unreachable, and the CIA dude goes back to Chicago, and this is when things get really weird. It seems as if my programming was surfacing, when some new friends stole some things from my house. I found out they did it through the grapevine. Apparently everywhere they were, so as they'd be driving around and there I was mile after mile just standing there. They thought no way, so they called my house to leave a message. I was home. Their lights would flicker on and off, the TV too. They all tried moved away, although I threw their cars off the road and caused severe injury to them all. I began flying through my TV set and looking into people's living rooms through their TV. Twice someone drove by me and gave me a dirty look and I blew their car engine up. Once it was an undercover cop. I have witnesses both times. My friends knew I did it. Every time I came into my friend's house their lights would flicker and blow up. When the priests were beginning to be caught molesting the boys, I was driving by a Josephium Priest College in Columbus and thought, what an evil group, and instantly an entire wing became engulfed in flames. One neighbor gave me a dirty look and I ripped their front door off and launched it across their driveway with my mind, and his wife ran inside to hide their evil looks. Nobody liked those annoying neighbors. The 2003 blackout from Cleveland to Trenton, New Jersey, I was at exactly the town where the blackout stopped, or began. I do not understand that one. The other day this person gave me a dirty look and their feet swept up and they were launched 10 feet away. I didn't mean to do it, I just got pissed off at the look I was given. Instant karma is bliss, they know exactly what is being done unto them. I'm really a peaceful guy if you ask anyone who has gotten to know me. Just from mind-controlled people we have a lot of anger built up. Just like a druid, apparently Jesus' favorite folk, very spiritual and very fierce. Beautiful blood to have. 4 times I healed a dead animal. One time 5 young girls were crying holding a squirrel hit by a car. I said, how long has it been dead? They said 20 minutes. I told the one girl to touch it right between the eyes, and I quickly sent bornin to the squirrel, and it instantly leaped up, jumped off the shoulders and climbed a 100-foot oak. Hopefully I gave that girl belief she can resurrect. My cousin had only 1 month to live from cancer. I heard of this, so I sent her bornin and the doctors said it was completely gone days later. It seems I was trained in the subtle energies, which can be used for offense and defense, good or bad. I still get all these calls where hey, ask if Jacob is there or is Jay there, and all these weird clicks and pops and tones are playing in the background. I don't even answer the phone anymore. But sadly, recently I was flown to a job in Ithaca, New York, and just requested to leave, and I jumped on a Greyhound and went to Rochester, New York for a few days, then flew home. Now that I look back, it was very weird that I did that. I've actually found a few other Marines I worked with and they can't remember entire years, maybe small fragments if that. While living in Corpus Christi, near the SPID, I was walking at night, then all of a sudden kind of lost my balance and felt tingly all over. I looked up and no more than 200 yards up was a triangular craft with lights in the corners. Did I miss time and was beamed back down? I'm not sure if I lost time. I never wear a watch, I just keep track of the days. For some reason I always been interested in books on hypnosis and psychology. I wonder why. At the age of 17, I already acquired and read all the college textbooks for a psychology degree, and maybe 100 more. This is most of all I've been able to piece together so far. I have tried to open up more memories by inducing lucid dreaming. When I first began this, I began having dreams of being molested as a young boy as I journeyed to know how it all began. One time I felt the perspective of being the older man who was molesting me to understand just how could anybody do that. These memories haunt me. So much of my mind is closed as of lately I only dream forward towards my best desires. I imagine a better future where most of the population quickly joins in harmony and our great minds together as battery ran in series raises the frequency to the fourth dimension. To inform is good. This requires energy. Energy best spent would be fourth dimension worldwide holiday. Imagine all of humanity's power aimed at our ultimate goal. To have this day on a Tuesday would be pure Tuesday for togetherness. Too much conflict of energies on Sunday. Let's all play hooky on Tuesday, what a ya say. Screw the dollar for the day. Companies can't fire everyone. If we try to make it official, that will take beyond 2012, the pole shift where too many beautiful souls will lose the opportunity to shift. They will have to be born again, spending many years adjusting to their new blood memories and fleshy coordination. Even if you survive the pole shift, chances are you'll be starving, filthy, everywhere you go it will smell like ass and dead bodies. Then for sure you'll be microchipped. Let's not take that road. Sounds wacky, doesn't it? Look what my power has done. It will work. Let's organize and pick a day, what a ya say. Let's do it quickly though. How about before the USA elections? For some reason I feel much bad coming. Bush may find a way to stay in presidency till the end. Tuesday, Worldwide Fourth Dimension Focus Day. The Pleiadians have given me specific directives not to disclose the details of my walk-in situation until I have permission at a later date. According to them, I am being prepared for a mission at a time when their spacecraft are seen by hundreds of thousands of people in broad daylight, such as the mass sightings at Fatima in Portugal and Mexico. They say at this time I will travel to many different countries around the world and speak in front of large crowds. The various radio shows I have appeared on, such as Coast to Coast AM, are just a precursor to this, I am told. I've taken steps to put these people in the emails in touch with each other. There is now a loose network coming together that is breaking out of various mind control and behavior modification programs. With the backing of factions in the UK and US government that support us, this freedom movement goes under the official title of Project Michael. We are currently seeking more suitable headquarters and corporate funding. I will restate my message to any and all members of the intelligence community, military, and industrial apparatus who wish to get on board. All identities will remain confidential. A true slave is the man who cannot speak his mind. Copyright James Casbolt / Michael Prince. All rights reserved.